Chapter 1306. Lung Yu remained expressionless, his expression scarily cold. He drained the tea in his hand in one gulp and said indifferently, "Let's go. Demon Monarch Lung Yu. Remember that you owe me, Blue Dragon King Xiaochen, a favor." Lung Yu could still smile when the other party was heartless. However, Xiaochen could not smile no matter what. Is he leaving? However, Yao Manlan felt something strange. Why does the atmosphere seem somewhat off? Lung Yu's heart bled, but she still maintained a smile. She stood up and said, "Blue Dragon King Xiaochen is indeed magnanimous. Now that I see you today, you truly live up to your reputation. This demon monarch will remember this favor." Whoosh! As Lung Yu carried Yao Manlan, she did not seem reluctant to leave at all. She left as soon as she said so, showing no intention of turning back. The last bit of hope in Xiaochen's heart vanished. The teacup in his hand shattered with a loud bang. The shard stabbed into his palm, and blood slowly flowed out. It was a ghastly sight. Xiaochen did not have many friends. Friends who had gone through life and death with him were even fewer. Since they were friends, he naturally did not care about the other party's identity. However, back then, when Xiaochen said that they would meet again if fate willed it, how could he have expected that after they met again, it would be such a situation? Actually, given Xiaochen's sharp eyes and meticulous thoughts, he should have been able to catch the change in Lung Yu's expression in that instant. However, Xiaochen clearly understood why Lung Yu's heart fluttered. He just did not want to admit it. Although some things were hazy, they were very real, unforgettable. Far away, Lung Yu carried Yao Manlan through the void. She should have returned directly to the demonic world. However, she suddenly stopped and landed at the seaside. She could no longer keep up the pretense. She covered her face and squatted down in pain. "Master." Yao Manlan felt a strange sourness in her heart. By now, she had already vaguely guessed what happened between her doting master and the Blue Dragon King Xiaochen. However, how could an Eros demon fall in love? Furthermore, this was the Blue Dragon King Xiaochen. Once he advanced to martial emperor, he would definitely clash with the demonic world. After a long time, Lung Yu stood up. There seemed to be traces of tears on her face. However, her expression had already recovered the dignity and indifference that a demon monarch should have. Feng Ziyi acted on his own this time, thinking that by obtaining the Sky Dome heart, the winged demon monarch will view him in a different light. However, he didn't know that he had committed a great taboo. It would have been fine if he had gotten it, but who knew that he wouldn't have gotten it? Now his father has already imprisoned him in the demon prison. When Yao Manlan heard this, she was startled, forgetting what she had just said. She cried out hoarsely, "Then what about the amber heart that he promised me?" Cold Rain did not say anything. A tricolored amber filled with alluring light appeared in her palm. "I got it from the demonic wind monarch. If it is yours, it will be yours." "Master, I was wrong." Yao Manlan lowered her head and said with tears in her eyes. Lung Yu whispered, "You are not wrong. You just met someone you should not have met." "Who exactly is he?" Yao Manlan plucked up her courage and asked. "He is the person this emperor wants to meet the most in this life. He is also the person this emperor wants to see the most in this life." Wanting to see the most and wanting to see the most seemed contradictory, yet not contradictory at all. Suddenly, Lung Yu's expression changed. Then, she led Yao Manlan away and hid their auras in the seawater. A strong gust of wind blew behind him as a white figure flew over on the clouds. That figure landed and stood at the seaside, looking into the distance as if searching for something. Through the icy seawater, Lung Yu clearly saw that figure's appearance. It was Xiaochen who had chased after them from Qingyan Peak. Drip, drip. Blood continuously dripped from Xiaochen's right hand. The wound on his palm looked horrifying. Lung Yu felt a pang in her heart. When she looked up, she saw Xiaochen smiling bitterly. His lips moved as if he was saying something. "I, Xiaochen, have never misjudged a person. Was I really wrong this time?" In the seawater, Lung Yu covered her mouth. She could not hold back her tears, letting them flow freely. As he looked at the seaside, Xiaochen's thoughts fluctuated. Then he revealed a self-mocking smile. He already guessed the result, yet he still foolishly came over, thinking that he could see the scene he anticipated. After a long time, Xiaochen slowly calmed down. He muttered to himself, "I'll just take it that I saw wrong. However, thank you for that 1 year. Goodbye." Xiaochen gently pushed off with his feet, and his figure flashed. In a few blinks of an eye, he vanished from where he was, heading for the depths of the sea. He wanted to undergo his tribulation, the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 8th layer. He wanted to forget this unhappiness, to completely forget it amid the 10,000 bolts of lightning. Splash. Water splashed up, and Leng Yu and Yao Manlan leaped out of the water. Leng Yu looked into the distance, not saying anything for a long time. Her gaze seemed to be able to see very far. She could see that Xiaochen was really rushing towards the deep sea without even looking back. Based on his hurried figure, she could see that he was resolute and decisive, not showing any reluctance to leave. "Master, he is really pretty good. Why didn't you come out?" Yao Manlan asked softly. In all fairness, in Yao Manlan's opinion, the Blue Dragon King Xiaochen was indeed a very charming person. Leng Yu muttered, "The better he is, the more we cannot meet. Great chaos is coming. You don't know this, but in this great calamity, only one of the demonic world or the Kunlun realm can survive. No one can avoid this fate. We will eventually meet on the battlefield. What is he going to do now? Is he going to give chase to the demonic world?" Yao Manlan asked softly. Leng Yu felt worried in her heart. She shook her head and said, "It doesn't seem like it. He cannot go to our demonic world's lair in the Sky Dome realm. Manlan, go back by yourself. I'll follow and take a look." Yao Manlan nodded gently. She knew that since her master made this decision, there was no way to dissuade her. Amid the strong winds, Xiaochen stepped on the sea. There were countless desolate sea regions in the vast deep sea, too many to count. There were many places to take the tribulation. Xiaochen did not hesitate and landed on one of the desolate islands. The island was desolate. Aside from rocks and tall mountains piled with rocks, there was nothing else. The Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 8th layer lightning tribulation should have happened 3 years ago. However, he delayed it until now to be safe. Now that he had a half-step golden body, condensed a heart of an emperor, and cultivated primordial energy, it would be easy for him to undergo the lightning tribulation from 3 years ago. It would be just like when he fought his opponent 3 years ago. He would be able to kill his opponent effortlessly. No matter how many lightning tribulations there were, Xiaochen did not fear them. There was only the final heart tribulation, the heart demon tribulation. There were too many unknowns. During the previous lightning tribulation, Xiaochen also fell to the final heart demon tribulation. He could not make it through, so he got Ao Jiao to help. "Ao Jiao, don't make a move this time. Otherwise, even if I succeed in my tribulation, the heart demon will accompany me for life," Xiaochen said seriously. Ao Jiao, who was in the immortal spirit ring, nodded. "I know. I am too deeply involved with you. If I make a move this time, your heart demon will be even more severe." However, worry flashed in Ao Jiao's eyes. However, is this really the right time to undergo the tribulation? Of course, she did not fear the lightning tribulation. With Xiaochen's half-step golden body, he should be able to endure the 8th layer of the lightning tribulation without any problems. However, the final heart tribulation was hard to say. In the Sky Dome realm, Xiaochen had experienced 2 setbacks. The first was when Lu Riyue's fate was unknown, and she left this abandoned land. The second was now. Xiaochen had misjudged her, causing his heart to waver. Undergoing the tribulation now was not appropriate, simply not appropriate. Ao Jiao wanted to advise Xiaochen. However, Xiaochen had already made up his mind, so there was no point in saying anything more. Just as Ao Jiao was about to say something, she sighed and pulled back. "Let's begin." Xiaochen crushed an essence stone in his hand. Surging in pure spiritual energy surged towards the purple whirlpool in his dantian. Unlike before, Xiaochen did not send the absorbed energy into his heart of an emperor. Instead, he let that whirlpool absorb the vast spiritual energy. Boom! The whirlpool, which had been suppressed for so long, did not last for long before exploding. It was so fast that it somewhat surpassed Xiaochen's expectations. It was clear that the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 7th layer could no longer hold on. and needed to break through. It was like a barrel of gunpowder. With just a spark, it gave off a startling explosion. As the explosion rang out in Xiao Chen's body, the boundless thunderclouds within 500 kilometers of him gathered above his head like a vast army. Leng Yu, who was hidden in the distance, felt startled. Xiao Chen was undergoing a tribulation. However, this was not the great tribulation of wind and fire, but the lightning tribulation, which made her feel slightly more at ease. Even if he is undergoing a lightning tribulation, he should not have done it now, Leng Yu said with some resentment as she bit her lip. At the same time, she blamed herself. Had she known that Xiao Chen was undergoing a tribulation, she would not have been so heartless. What if he got injured in the lightning tribulation? Whether she was willing or not, the matter had already happened. The lightning tribulation had already begun. Boom! When the first bolt of lightning descended, Xiao Chen gladly endured it. Following that, a continuous barrage of lightning followed, not giving him any time to catch his breath. After 100 bolts of lightning, Xiao Chen used his primordial energy to erect a shield. Given Xiao Chen's experience, this was just an appetizer. The main course would come later. Previously it was 999 bolts of completely different divine lightning struck Xiao Chen until he wished for death, tormenting him half to death. His physical body nearly turned into mud. However, this time it was fine. Xiao Chen's strength had already undergone a drastic change. It was equivalent to having Emperor Wu's strength endure the blue-robed emperor's lightning tribulation. As Xiao Chen expected, after 100 bolts of lightning, all sorts of divine lightning appeared. Some were like weapons, turning into sabers, spears, swords, staffs, and all sorts of lightning weapons, materializing all sorts of killing moves as they descended from the sky. Some turned into ferocious beasts, rearing their heads to the sky and roaring. Some gathered into all sorts of secret treasures, imitating all sorts of might, wanting to crush Xiao Chen. Some turned into mountains, looking majestic and majestic. Some stretched out endlessly, and some rose up strangely, wanting to suppress Xiao Chen. After withstanding more than 300 bolts of divine lightning, the shield shattered. Xiao Chen drew his lunar shadow saber and started to clash with the various divine lightning. He executed everything he learned to deal with the descending divine lightning. Although this was very startling and incredibly dangerous, it was very stable. Everything was within his control. Xiao Chen still had many trump cards that he had not used yet. The number of 9s passed long ago. It looks like my divine lightning this time should be 4 9s, a total of 9,999 bolts. Xiao Chen calculated in his heart. At the same time, he marveled at how powerful this purple thunder divine incantation was. If he were only as strong as the blue-robed emperor, he would definitely die trying to take this lightning tribulation. He would not be able to last until the heart tribulation arrived. Chapter 1307. The further he went, the more dangerous the lightning tribulations became. Xiao Chen was no longer in the mood to count how many lightning tribulations he had undergone. Amid the flashing lightning and roaring thunder, he was like a small boat full of misfortune, in danger of being destroyed at any moment. Xiao Chen had used up all his trump cards. Finally, he relied on the Taiji force field to hold on and clear all the lightning tribulations. The tribulation clouds in the sky scattered, and Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. His clothes were tattered, but his physical body was still intact. It was much better than the first time. The heart tribulation should be arriving soon. Xiao Chen became exceptionally cautious. Previously he fell to the heart tribulation. He absolutely could not fall again this time. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, a hole opened in the sky. An intense light poured down, dazzling Xiao Chen's eyes. When he opened his eyes, he discovered that he was on Qingyan Peak. Lu Riyue was beside him. She smiled warmly and said, "You are finally willing to come back. Are you still leaving this time?" The familiar face, the familiar voice, and the gentle words. Even if one knew it was fake, one would not be willing to break this rare silence. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and held Lu Riyue's hands. He said, "I'm not leaving this time." "Good, then it's settled. You are not allowed to leave this time." Lu Riyue smiled faintly and held Xiao Chen's hands tightly. She could not bear to let go no matter what. The days passed like this on Qingyan Peak. Xiao Chen accompanied Lu Ruyue as they wandered around the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, enjoying the peaceful and warm time. There were no conflicts, no pressure from the Blue Dragon King, no enemies on the path of cultivation. There was only happiness. The two would argue over trivial matters. They would be moved over trivial matters. They would cry, laugh, and even make a fuss. Even though Xiao Chen knew it was fake, he was still filled with reluctance. He wanted to leave several times. However, Lu Ruyue's pitiful gaze defeated him, so he agreed to stay for one more month. The lightning tribulation was easy to clear, but the heart tribulation was difficult. Could Xiao Chen clear it this time? Month after month, Xiao Chen stayed in this heart demon world for 1 year. But no matter how long he stayed, he would have to leave one day. What was fake was fake. On this particular day, Xiao Chen felt like leaving. He hugged Lu Ruyue and said, "Even if you are destined to leave, I should see you one last time and not watch you leave in Suifeng's memories." Tears appeared in the corners of Lu Ruyue's eyes as she pushed Xiao Chen away. She looked at him and said, "Are you leaving? Promise me, stay with me for 1 more month, okay? Just 1 more month, just 1 more month, and I'll be satisfied." The corners of Xiao Chen's eyes were also brimming with tears. He said in a trembling voice, "All right, I promise you, but you have to close your eyes first. As long as you promise me, I will listen to everything you say." Lu Ruyue immediately smiled and obediently closed her eyes. "Sorry." Holding back the tears in his eyes, Xiao Chen swung his saber and chopped off Lu Ruyue's head. There were some things that even if you knew it was fake, it was still difficult to do anything about it. Whoosh! The scene before Xiao Chen changed. Ao Jiao leaped out joyfully and said, "Congratulations, you finally cleared this heart tribulation." Xiao Chen forced out a smile. His heart was still immersed in the illusion, in that peaceful and happy atmosphere. That kind of beauty was something one could not bear to part with. This was the horror of a heart demon. Even if one knew it was fake, one would still treat the fake as the truth, forever unable to walk out. Fortunately, Xiao Chen managed to walk out in the end. He wanted to feel the effects of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 8th layer. Suddenly, Xiao Chen frowned. He looked up and discovered a figure hidden in the clouds. "Who is it?" Xiao Chen shouted and gave chase at lightning speed. The clouds parted, and he saw a clear figure. Xiao Chen felt somewhat disappointed and frustrated. Then he rejoiced. "Leng Yu. It's her. It's her. I did not see wrong. She did not go far. She has been following me." Executing the fish dragon arts movement technique, Xiao Chen flew over at lightning speed, chasing after Leng Yu. This time, Xiao Chen swore in his heart that he would not show a straight face on purpose. As a man, he should learn to understand and not act in a fit of pique. As Xiao Chen gave chase, he focused all his attention on that pretty figure in front of him. What heart demon? What Purple Thunder Divine Incantation? He had already forgotten all about it. "Leng Yu, since you can't bear to part with me, why can't you meet me now?" Xiao Chen shouted loudly when he saw the other party getting further and further away. The figure in front of Zhang Xian froze, as if something had triggered her, and her speed slowed down. Xiao Chen took advantage of this opportunity and increased his speed. He leaped into the air and finally landed in front of Leng Yu, blocking her. Their eyes met. Xiao Chen felt many emotions. After a long time he said calmly, "Even if you are a demon monarch with overwhelming strength, if you are willing, I, Xiao Chen, will always be your friend." Leng Yu shook her head and smiled. "It is not as simple as you think. There are too many things that you do not understand." Suddenly, Xiao Chen grabbed Leng Yu's shoulders and said sullenly, "Look at me. I'll ask you one thing. Back then, did you see only one person? I just want you to tell me. Yes or no?" Leng Yu showed a conflicted expression. Tears welled up in her eyes as she said, "Don't force me." Xiao Chen smiled. He already knew the answer. Leng Yu had indeed been acting earlier. That smile was incredibly cruel, just to hide the struggle in her heart. She was not as heartless as Xiao Chen thought. Letting go of Leng Yu, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "I won't force you. I just need to know that you have not forgotten the past. That is enough." Leng Yu smiled and said, "How can I forget that past? If I really did, I would not be so reluctant to part with you. Don't move. Let me look at that past again. After that, I'll leave, all right? Leng Yu begged. Xiao Chun understood that Leng Yu wanted him to open his heart and search for that memory in the depths of his memories. Sure, come in. I have never forgotten this part of the past. Xiao Chun smiled faintly and let Leng Yu place her finger on his forehead. In the real world, on a calm sea, Ao Jiao circled around Xiao Chun anxiously. 7 days had passed since the lightning tribulation, but Xiao Chun still had not woken up. Xiao Chun did not know what he had experienced in the heart demon world that completely entangled him. Ao Jiao felt sorrowful in her heart. If this continued, Xiao Chun's heart would definitely be swallowed up by the heart demon. He would become a heartless body, never to wake up again. However, she could not help at all. Xiao Chun could only rely on himself for such matters. Only an expert whose mental energy cultivation reached the level of the heaven-abandoning deity sovereign could interfere. Not to mention the fact that Emperor Forsaken would not come to help Xiao Chun. Even if he did, 7 days had already passed. It might not be of any use. Up in the clouds, Leng Yu's expression turned grave. She had already cultivated her charm techniques to the point where she could infiltrate the mind. With one glance, she could tell that Xiao Chun was undergoing a heart tribulation. However, 7 days had passed, and Xiao Chun still had not woken up. Not good. The heart demon probably caught hold of his weakness. I have to go and take a look. Originally, Leng Yu was prepared to never face Xiao Chun again. However, now that Xiao Chun was in danger, she could no longer care so much. A purple mark flickered on Leng Yu's forehead. A strong wind blew, and a strong aura spread out from her body. The clouds scattered, revealing Leng Yu in azure, looking tyrannical as she hovered in midair. At this moment, the demon monarch Leng Yu did not look weak at all. Leng Yu's strong aura caused the vast and boundless sea to tremble in fear, kicking up huge waves. Ao Jiao looked up. However, before she could understand what was going on, she fainted the moment she saw Leng Yu's eyes. Leng Yu floated down and placed a finger on Xiao Chun's forehead. A horrifying scene appeared before her eyes. His heart, which was beating nonstop, had already been half occupied by the black shadow. It looked as if an ugly monster was going to swallow the tender heart whole. What exactly is it that made him completely defenseless, opening up his heart? Does this fellow not know that he is undergoing a heart tribulation? The demon monarch Leng Yu exclaimed. Then she directly entered that heart. Whoosh! The scene before Leng Yu changed. She saw a scene that caused her mind to go blank. She saw Xiao Chun closing his eyes, letting her touch his forehead with her finger. The two revealed smiles on their faces. However, Xiao Chun's smile was blissful and serene. Leng Yu's smile was strange and sinister. To think that Xiao Chun opened up his heart for her. Damn it. Damn it to the extreme. Rage surged in Leng Yu's heart. Her expression turned cold. She had never felt so furious before. Insignificant heart demon, who gave you the courage to touch this monarch's person? Leng Yu roared as she walked over step by step. The demon monarch's tyranny made others not dare to look her in the eye. The heart demon Leng Yu, who was in front of Xiao Chun, turned her head and was startled, turning pale. Still not stopping. Do you believe that this monarch will lock you in a heart prison, and let the heart flame burn you for 1,000 years, 10,000 years? The heart demon Leng Yu trembled, quickly letting go in fright. Xiao Chun slowly woke up. He recalled the memories he had with Leng Yu back then. Suddenly he opened his eyes and saw two Leng Yu before him. One was lying on the ground, looking very weak. The other had a cold and emotionless face and a frightening killing chi. Her gaze revealed a strong tyrannical aura. Xiao Chun, she is a heart demon. Quickly save me. The heart demon Leng Yu said as she sobbed. Leng Yu frowned and shouted coldly. How dare you? Leng Yu waved her long sleeves, and the heart demon Leng Yu's body immediately burned. She cried out in pain and reverted to her original form. That clump of ugly, illusory light changed continuously as she wailed in pain. Xiao Chun seemed to wake up from a dream. He looked at Leng Yu, who gave off the boundless sovereign aura. However, he felt somewhat confused, not knowing what was going on. Leng Yu walked over step by step, and her expression turned gentle. You opened up your heart to the heart demon. The situation is critical. Don't ask anything now. I already occupied this heart demon's true body. If you kill me now, you can come out. Xiaochen felt like he was dreaming. You did not leave all this while. Are you watching me undergo my tribulation? Leng Yu smiled sadly. If something happens to you, I will not be able to rest easy. After saying that, Leng Yu grabbed Xiaochen's hand and stabbed it into her heart. Boom. All the illusions vanished, and Xiaochen returned to reality. He saw blood leaking out of a corner of Leng Yu's lips. Her finger, which was on Xiaochen's forehead, relaxed. Chapter 1308. Xiaochen felt a pang in his heart. He quickly stretched out his hand to grab it. However, Leng Yu's body turned into light and scattered. Leng Yu revealed a smile as she caressed Xiaochen's face with her other hand. Don't overthink. The relationship between you and me is not something that can be explained with words like favor. Whether you are the Blue Dragon King of the Kunlun realm or me, the Demon Monarch, in my heart, you will always be that frivolous youth who left me behind. Right after Xiaochen spoke, Leng Yu's body turned into nothing. This clone died for the sake of saving Xiaochen. At the same time, in a cold and magnificent palace in the deep abyss demonic world, Leng Yu wore luxurious yellow robes and had her eyes closed, exuding a cold and noble air. Many figures stood on both sides of the throne. Without exception, they were all handsome men with strong auras. There were humans, fiend race, deity race, and demon race. These were Leng Yu's heart slaves, all her slaves. When the clone died, Leng Yu, who was on the throne, opened her eyes. All the heart slaves knelt down and shouted respectfully, "Master." Leng Yu did not even look at them. She stretched out her hand, and a beam of light materialized into a white-clad youth with a treasured saber hanging at his waist. There are thousands of handsome men in the world. The demon monarch, Leng Yu, is moved only by you. What happened in the illusion happened in reality as well. What was real and what was fake, what was real and what was fake. Even Xiaochen could not distinguish them. No wonder the heart demon could find an opening. Xiaochen closed his eyes and looked at his dantian. The purple electric chi whirlpool had clearly doubled in size. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and finally understood. In the illusion, when he checked the 8th layer of the purple thunder divine incantation, all sorts of things attracted his attention, preventing him from checking it. This was because even Xiaochen did not know what the 8th layer of the purple thunder divine incantation was like. Naturally, he could not create a heart demon in the illusion. Now that he saw the chi whirlpool formed by the 8th layer of the purple thunder divine incantation, and his sea of consciousness that had expanded by 4 or 5 times, he finally knew that he was truly standing in reality. After a while, Xiaochen guffawed loudly. Leng Yu had indeed not changed. Xiaochen had not misjudged her. There was an indescribable carefreeness in Xiaochen's laughter, as if a knot in his heart had been untied. After laughing, a feeling of hunger suddenly came from every part of his body. Not only did the cyclone in his dantian feel hungry, but the nascent soul in his sea of consciousness was also crying piteously for food. Since he reached the consummation blue-robed emperor, his cultivation had stopped. After that Xiaochen, he had not felt this hunger in a long time. Unfortunately, this was the Sky Dome realm and not the Kunlun realm. Otherwise, it would be like a fish in the sea, comfortable and carefree. Xiaochen's face lit up in joy. The progress that he had been waiting for was finally here. Xiaochen. Xiao and Chen and a yin and the Xiao. And Ji, Chen. After the purple thunder divine incantation converted the spiritual energy from the essence stones, it split into 2 parts. One flowed to his sea of consciousness, increasing his magic energy. The other flowed to the blue dragon Yuanying, increasing his cultivation. In merely 1 hour, the 2 essence stones were completely drained, turning into useless rocks. His body was not satisfied yet. Xiaochen tossed them aside, and continued to take out the 2 essence stones to cultivate. Right now he urgently needed these cultivation resources, so he did not feel any reluctance to part with them. Time passed slowly. After 3 days, the hunger in Xiaochen's body was no longer as pressing. The magic energy flowing in his enlarged sea of consciousness already occupied half of it. Counting carefully, The magic energy was more than double that of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 7th layer. Furthermore, it was purer. When Xiao Chun filled his sea of consciousness, his magic energy would be much stronger. However, this was not the greatest change. The greatest change was in his blue dragon Yuanying. The blue dragon martial spirit residing in his dantian felt like it had undergone a qualitative leap. However, the price was startling as well. In the past 3 days, Xiao Chun had used up double the 20,000 essence stones that he had. Xiao Chun sighed softly. If I were in the Kunlun realm, given the abundant spiritual energy of the Kunlun realm, I would have been able to save at least 5,000 essence stones. Although Xiao Chun said this, he did not regret it. There were too many uncertainties in the Kunlun realm. He might not have been able to clear his tribulation so smoothly in the Kunlun realm. Xiao Chun, you cleared your heart tribulation? Ao Jiao, who had been unconscious for 3 days, slowly woke up. She still felt somewhat groggy. Xiao Chun smiled and said, I did. It's been hard on you. Ao Jiao smiled embarrassedly and said, What hard on me? I'm too embarrassed to say that I actually fell asleep. Damn it. Xiao Chun understood that Ao Jiao should not have fallen asleep. Leng Yu must have made her fall asleep. Come, let's return to Qingyan Peak. In the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Xiao Chun's life became exceptionally peaceful. Aside from cultivating, he would wander around. Occasionally, he would see some of his old friends in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The Taiji Dao, the Saber Domain, and the major magic skill of Dermic World slowly calmed down during these peaceful days. Sometimes, when Xiao Chun calmed down, he vaguely felt that the Emperor's bridge that connected the world to the chasm was already mostly completed. Xiao Chun stood on the bridge and looked across. The heavy fog surrounding the Emperor's door had already significantly dissipated. The great tribulation of wind and fire approached. It was fine in the Sky Dome realm. When Xiao Chun cultivated, he could even hear the sound of surging winds and blazing flames. Under such circumstances, Xiao Chun had already stopped cultivating his primordial energy and heavenly sage laws. He feared that if he made a mistake, the great tribulation of wind and fire would suddenly descend, catching him off guard. Xiao Chun focused all his attention on the cultivation of his magic energy, continuously tempering and polishing his magic energy, making it even purer. Now he could maintain the major magic skill of Dermic World for 3 seconds. One should not underestimate these 3 seconds. 3 seconds of Dermic World was sufficient for Xiao Chun to do many things. If he used it at a crucial moment, he could instantly reverse the situation and turn the situation around. The Taiji Dao, the mysteries of stillness and movement, fast and slow, had already formally entered the introductory stage. This Taiji Dao was like a brand new door, opening a completely different world for Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun's cultivation of the fish dragon art slowly entered an optimal state. When he dodged, he nearly completely infused it into the Taiji Dao. The cultivation of the Saber Domain entered a completely different realm, a comprehension that had never been recorded in the Kunlun realm before. Now, Xiao Chun had cultivated 3 spots of light like the sun in his sea of consciousness. Xiao Chun did not know what they were exactly. He only knew that when he touched them, they would be extremely mighty, as horrifying as the sun exploding. In the blink of an eye, 1 year had passed since Xiao Chun left the Kunlun realm and arrived in the Sky Dome realm. On this particular day, Yu Chenxi, Gong Yangyu, and Xianyuan Zhantian traveled together to Qingyan Peak, where Xiao Chun was. Are we leaving? Xiao Chun asked. The 3 nodded. They were different from Xiao Chun. Right now, Xiao Chun could no longer raise his cultivation. He mainly focused on cultivating his mental state and cultivating his magic energy. Furthermore, they were in their golden years and needed to take risks and encounter great fortuitous encounters to raise their cultivation. They could not remain in the Sky Dome realm for long. Half a year was already a very long time. If they were in the Kunlun realm, half a year would be enough to raise their cultivation by 1 grade. Right now, the Sky Dome realm looks peaceful on the surface, but in reality, there are undercurrents. One day it will erupt, Yu Chenxi said worriedly. At the mention of this, Xianyuan Zhantian felt worried. He nodded and said, Indeed. My father told me that there will be a great change in the Kunlun realm. Great chaos is coming. Right now this is just the calm before the storm. From the moment Feng Zi started snatching the Sky Dome heart, Xiaochen had already anticipated that there would be a great change in the Sky Dome realm. Xiaochen knew even more than these three. He had learned from Mingyu that the great chaos 10,000 years ago, which caused the Tianwu Emperor and the Qing Emperor to fall at the same time, started in the Sky Dome realm. With such worry, even if they left, they would not feel at ease. Xiaochen said, "How about this? Bring your families to my Xiao clan. I laid a formation there that can defend against Emperor Wu. Even if there is great chaos in the future, it will be a buffer, giving us time to send reinforcements." "That is good." Yu Chenxi and the other two rejoiced. On this trip to the Kunlun realm, the ones they worried about the most were their families. With Xiaochen's words, they finally had something to worry about. Xiaochen smiled faintly. Then he thought of something and said, "There are a few people of my Xiao clan with pretty good talent. This time, I'll have to trouble you to bring them to the Kunlun realm. If you have time, help me take care of them." "Don't worry. Just leave this small matter to us." As Xiaochen watched the three leave excitedly, he revealed a contemplative expression on his calm face. Everything that happened in the Sky Dome immortal realm still made him feel uneasy. Something must have happened in the Kunlun realm. Otherwise, the three holy masters would not be so bold as to send people to the Sky Dome realm to seek trouble for him. Everyone says that great chaos is coming. How chaotic will it be? Xiaochen asked as he swirled the teacup in his hand. Just at this moment, Xiaochen frowned slightly. He felt a fluctuation, and he immediately looked into the distance. At the limits of his vision was the ancient desolate land, the hidden dragon lake, the first-generation Tianwu Emperor's grave. This was strange. Back then, the formation that Xiaochen used to seal the first-generation Tianwu Emperor's grave was considered powerful in the Sky Dome realm. However, it could not block an existence on the level of the blue-robed emperor. However, even after so many years, no one had touched the first-generation Tianwu Emperor's grave. Many people should be interested in such a person. However, no one had broken the formation that Xiaochen left. Xiaochen was the one who laid the formation, and the formation flags were his secret treasures. As long as there was any movement, he would be able to sense it immediately. Back then, when Xiaochen left the formation, he did not intend to block everyone. He only wanted to be able to rush over immediately when someone touched the formation. However, no one touched it. Was it because they feared his reputation and did not dare to touch it? Xiaochen felt that this possibility was very low. The greater reason might be because of Chu Chaoyan. This person definitely held a high position in the deep abyss demonic world. Perhaps Xiaochen had instructed the demons not to touch it. As for the people of the Sky Dome realm, they gave him face and did not touch it. However, there was a sudden fluctuation today. Someone was touching the formation that Xiaochen left behind. Strange. Xiaochen stood up and casually tore space, rushing towards the ancient desolate land at lightning speed. 10,000 years ago, the ancient desolate land had been the capital of the Tianwu dynasty, the center of the entire Sky Dome realm. With the fall of the dynasty, the prosperity of the past was no more. Now this place had turned into a stretch of endless lakes. Chapter 1309. Whoosh! Xiaochen appeared in the sky above the ancient desolate land. He felt that the attacks on the formation had suddenly stopped. The formation that Xiaochen laid was still there. This startled Xiaochen. It was not that someone was truly trying to break the formation. They just wanted to lure him over. Who could it be? However, Xiaochen did not fear this. Right now, he believed that no one in the Sky Dome realm was a match for him. Even major characters like the three holy masters did not dare to send people to seek trouble for him. After Xiaochen snatched away 3 sets of peak-quality king-grade battle armor, Xiaochen only felt suspicious. Who exactly was the person who lured him over? Was he not afraid of death? Xiaochen extended his spiritual sense everywhere he looked, immediately covering the entire lake in the ancient desolate land. The cultivators on the various islands and lakes with different expressions could not escape Xiaochen's eyes. After scanning the entire lake and withdrawing his spiritual sense, Xiaochen still could not find anyone suspicious. Just as Xiaochen's gaze shifted, he noticed a back view. The owner of this back view sat at the edge of the ancient desolate land with a sword on his back. As he looked at the lake in the ancient desolate land, he entered a daze, his face filled with grief. Just by looking at this back view, one could sense the sorrow and vicissitudes of life in his heart. It's him. Xiaochen slowly descended and walked over step by step. With one look he guessed who this back view was. It was the Tianwu dynasty's descendant, Chu Chaoyan. Chu Chaoyan did not have any special aura, he looked ordinary. When the other cultivators passed by saw this appearance, they all felt confused. They all felt that they didn't know what was going on, and found it hard to understand. Why was Chu Chaoyan staring at the lake in a daze for no reason? Furthermore, he even put on a sorrowful expression. Who was he showing this to? When Xiaochen saw this scene, he suddenly thought of a saying. Those who know me know my worries. Those who do not know me know what I seek. Those who knew the ins and outs, like Xiaochen, naturally knew. Chu Chaoyan was just reminiscing. 10,000 years ago, this was the most bustling place in the Sky Dome realm, the center of the entire world. Carriages and people came and went, and the banners of the Tianwu dynasty filled the air. However, 10,000 years later, the city was gone, and the capital was destroyed. All that could be seen was a vast lake. As a descendant of the dynasty, he would probably feel deeply moved every time he saw it. However, outsiders did not know that those martial artists who passed by only saw a silly boy staring blankly at the lake. When he saw Chu Chaoyan, he was certain that he was the one who had led him here. As if he had eyes at the back of his head, Chu Chaoyan seemed to have sensed Xiaochen's arrival. He suddenly got up and dashed forward. Xiaochen's heart skipped a beat, and he chased after him. As the chase continued, they arrived at the hidden dragon lake. Chu Chaoyan dove into the lake with a plop. After hesitating for a moment, Xiaochen evaluated his strength. Even if there was an ambush below, he would be able to escape if he executed Dermic World, and even kill his opponent. Without any hesitation, Xiaochen quickly followed after Chu Chaoyan and entered the hidden dragon lake. When Xiaochen reached the bottom of the lake and passed through the invisible barrier, he saw Chu Chaoyan hovering in the air above the Tianwu Emperor's grave. Aside from Chu Chaoyan, there was no one else in the surroundings. There was no ambush that Xiaochen feared. Xiaochen walked over calmly and asked, "What do you want by luring me here?" "Chu Chaoyan, you can speak now, right?" Before the Tianwu Emperor's grave, Chu Chaoyan turned around and looked at Xiaochen. Then he revealed a smile and said, "It's nothing. I just want to see how strong you are now." Xiaochen was now extremely calm. He asked indifferently, "In that case, are you really seeking death?" Chu Chaoyan smiled and said, "Indeed. Aside from Emperor Wu, no one is a match for you. Even the most horrifying outstanding talents of the royal clans in the deep abyss demonic world might not be a match for you. However, when judging a person, one should not just look at what is in front of them. More importantly, one has to look at the future. I am here to see if you have any hope of clearing your tribulation." Xiaochen said interestedly, "Many thanks for your concern. In that case, what do you think my chances are?" Chu Chaoyan replied unhurriedly, "With your strength, I feel that you have a 10% chance." Xiaochen smiled and said, 10%? That is quite a high chance. Since ancient times, not even 1 in 10,000 people have cleared their great tribulation of wind and fire. I'm not done yet. If we consider external factors, your chances of clearing your tribulation would be 1 in 10,000. Chu Chaoyan paused for a moment before continuing. Perhaps you do not know yet, but the Thunder King's 10,000-year tribulation arrived early. Now there is no news of him. His fate is unknown. No one knows any news of him. What? You heard right. Now there is no news of the Thunder King. Many rumors say that he is already dead. The entire Kunlun realm is in chaos. When Xiaochen heard that, he felt startled. No wonder the 3 holy masters dared to come to the lower realm and send people to attack him. It turned out that such a huge change had happened in the Kunlun realm. As the undisputed king of the Kunlun realm, the strongest expert, the Thunder King, such a huge situation actually happened to him. There was no news of him, and his fate was unknown. The Thunder King could be considered Xiaochen's strongest backer. Back in the Kunlun realm, The Thunder King's existence was a major reason why Xiao Chun had not been crushed to death by the major characters. However, such a change was undoubtedly a bolt from the blue for Xiao Chun. The difficulty of advancing to martial emperor suddenly increased explosively. The great tribulation of wind and fire already left him in a terrible state. The moment the Thunder King left, the balance of the external factors was broken. The external factors immediately became strange. Chu Chaoyan smiled faintly and said, "Sorry for bringing you such bad news. However, this is good as well. It is much better than going to the Kunlun realm and suddenly finding out. At the very least, you have a buffer." Xiao Chun recovered his wits and asked coldly, "What's wrong? Should I thank you?" Chu Chaoyan waved his hand and said, "There's no need for that. You don't have to look at me like that. There will definitely be a battle between us, but now is not the time." These words again. Xiao Chun frowned and said, "I've heard enough of these words. What exactly is the grudge between us? Although I have always treated you as my opponent, I do not have much hatred for you. However, for so many years, you have been hiding things from me, telling me these words. What exactly do you mean?" "There's no rush. Our goal is the same. We have not achieved our goal yet, so how can we tell you everything? Catch this." Chu Chaoyan gently leaped up and casually broke the formation that Xiao Chun left. Then he stretched out his hand and grabbed a formation flag, tossing it to Xiao Chun. A formation that a martial sage laid could not pose a problem for Chu Chaoyan. Xiao Chun was not surprised. However, he had not expected the other party to break it so casually. Xiao Chun caught the formation flag and saw that Chu Chaoyan seemed to want to destroy the Tianwu Emperor's grave. His expression changed slightly, and a murderous intent surged in his heart. "Stop." Chu Chaoyan gently drifted down and stood on the simple tombstone of the first-generation Tianwu Emperor. He smiled gently and said, "Why stop? Actually, you must be very curious about the first-generation Tianwu Emperor's grave, right? Today, I will let you see what is inside." Before Xiao Chun could stop Chu Chaoyan, he saw Chu Chaoyan shatter the tombstone with one palm strike. The entire grave exploded, blasting the coffin out. The lid of the coffin opened with a huangdang sound. When Xiao Chun, who was preparing to make a move, saw the situation in the coffin, his face filled with shock and disbelief. With a face full of shock and disbelief, he stopped what he was doing. Empty. That's right. After the heavy coffin lid opened, there was nothing in the coffin. It was completely clean, and there was nothing there. Xiao Chun suspected that he saw wrong. This place had been determined to be the grave of the first-generation Tianwu Emperor for close to 20,000 years. However, there was indeed nothing in there. The old dragon guarding this place had solemnly instructed Xiao Chun not to let anyone open it. There was nothing in there. What difference would it make if Xiao Chun did not open it? Xiao Chun narrowed his eyes and looked at Chu Chaoyan. "You knew long ago that there was nothing in there?" Chu Chaoyan smiled gently and said, "If there really was any inheritance, someone would have opened it long ago when the Tianwu dynasty was destroyed to save the dynasty. Those major characters would have already come to take it away. How could it be left to us, two small fries?" Xiao Chun did not dare to believe it. However, that old dragon solemnly guarded this place for who knows how many years. If there is nothing in there, why would it need to guard this place? Chu Chaoyan's lips curled up as he kicked the coffin a few times. "It is not that there is nothing. I heard that this coffin was made by the first-generation Tianwu Emperor himself. It has a pretty good commemorative value. The old dragon was foolishly loyal. What it guarded was just a symbol." Chu Chaoyan's words were filled with disrespect for this first-generation Tianwu Emperor. He did not care about the first-generation Tianwu Emperor at all, treating him like an ancestor, not showing any respect at all. Xiao Chun still found this inconceivable. This result surpassed his expectations. Unexpectedly, there was nothing in the grave of the first-generation Tianwu Emperor. Xiao Chun's figure flashed and arrived at the blasted grave. The grave palace was rather intact, filled with the style of the ancient Tianwu dynasty. Xiao Chun carefully looked around. The construction of the grave palace was not complicated or spacious. The walls of the average-size grave palace were all solid. There were no secret passages or secret rooms. There were some murals carved on the walls. When Xiao Chen touched them, he felt a sharp sword intent. Even after the destruction of the dynasty, more than 20,000 years ago, the sword intent was still sharp. If not for Xiao Chen's current strength and his cultivation of the saber Dao reaching an unprecedented level, it would be hard to say that he would not be injured. Aside from the sharpness, Xiao Chen could feel the casual nature of the sword intent's master in this sword intent. That was to say, these murals were casually left behind by the sword intent's master, and did not hold any special meaning. Xiao Chen withdrew his hand and carefully examined the murals. Due to the passage of time, the murals were already very blurry. Most of them were covered by dust. However, based on the trajectory of the sword intent, Xiao Chen could feel that the sword intent's master carved these murals in one breath, using a sword. Xiao Chen looked around and used his sharp senses to find the starting point of the murals. After that, he stepped forward and closed his eyes. Then he used his left hand to touch the starting point. Life Bestowal Spell. Xiao Chen formed hand seals with his right hand and extended his hand. The dust in the grave palace flickered with light. Under the control of Xiao Chen's Life Bestowal spell, the dust gathered into a figure holding a sword. Vaguely, Xiao Chen seemed to see the scene of the sword intent's master dancing with a sword 20,000 years ago. Xiao Chen followed the starting point of the murals and walked forward step by step. His right hand continuously formed hand seals. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The figure formed by the dust danced with the sword, executing a sword technique. It was like this figure was reenacting the actions of the sword intent's master from 20,000 years ago, dancing with the sword. The sword light was magnificent and elegant. Chapter 13:10. His swordsmanship could not be considered very brilliant, but his carefree and casual temperament could still be felt clearly even after 20,000 years. Sword chi swept through the grave palace, causing the dust on the walls to fall off. The mural that revealed the true face of Mount Lu seemed to be influenced. The figure in the mural came to life and started dancing. Instantly, the entire grave palace was filled with sword images. Metallic clangs rang out endlessly. The scenes of distant history and reality merged together, creating a complicated scene. The stars moved in the grave palace as if time and space were reversed. On the ground, the previously calm Chu Chaoyan showed a slightly strange expression when he saw the sky full of sword images in the grave palace. Suddenly, two figures of light appeared on Chu Chaoyan's left and right, one black and one white. They held swords and moved at the same time. The sword technique materialized was no different from the one in the grave palace. In these sword images, Xiao Chen found a familiar feeling. The three sun-like lights in his sea of consciousness flickered endlessly, showing off their sharpness. They were like suns in his sea of consciousness, giving off an intense light. Xiao Chen walked slowly, step by step. As he sensed the sword Dao contained in the sword intent, he continuously perfected his saber Dao. When Xiao Chen reached the end of the mural, the figure formed by the life bestowal spell smiled faintly and nodded. It seemed very satisfied with the mural that it made. Then, it sheathed its sword and soared into the sky. Chu Chaoyan raised his head and looked at the figure soaring into the sky. His expression was complicated as he muttered to himself. "Since you are so strong, unparalleled since ancient times, why did you leave behind this vast dynasty and not care about it?" Whoosh! The black and white figures merged into Chu Chaoyan's body. He stretched out his finger, and the figure soaring into the sky directly shattered, turning into countless specks of dust and scattering. Inside the grave palace, Xiao Chen did not know about Chu Chaoyan's expression. He was currently carefully comprehending what he gained from the mural. Xiao Chen was practically certain that the first-generation Tianwu emperor left this mural behind. He had casually created it in one breath, forming this majestic painting. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Those sun-like motes of light in his sea of consciousness were a kind of energy that could only be comprehended through the saber domain after entering the saber Dao. Let's call it saber energy for now. It was a certain level of the saber Dao. He felt a similar sword energy in the first-generation Tianwu Emperor's sword intent. However, the first-generation Tianwu Emperor's sword energy was much stronger than Xiao Chen's. It would not be an exaggeration to describe it as a drop of water compared to an ocean. From the looks of it, Xiao Chen's choice in the saber domain was correct. As a bladesman, he should focus on the saber and supplement it with his domain. The use of the saber domain for bladesmen was to cultivate this saber energy. With a flash, Xiao Chen reappeared on the ground. He looked at Chu Chaoyan and said, "Many thanks for your help. Otherwise, I would not have been able to understand my saber Dao so clearly." Chu Chaoyan smiled faintly and said, "I didn't mean it. You don't have to thank me. I should be the one thanking you for making me realize how despicable the owner of this tomb is." Hate. Xiao Chen saw hatred in Chu Chaoyan's eyes. Hatred for the first-generation Tianwu Emperor. The first-generation Tianwu Emperor left behind a fake tomb and faked his own death, no longer caring about his descendants or the dynasty he founded. No wonder Chu Chaoyan hated him. Where did the first-generation Tianwu Emperor go? Had he left this place of exile? Or perhaps he was not a person of this abandoned land at all, and just went to where he should be. Why did Xiao Chen think this way? It was because he felt that this first-generation Tianwu Emperor was ridiculously strong, much stronger than the cultivators of the Kunlun realm's ancient era. There was also that strange heavenly flame. Xiao Chen felt that this heavenly flame might be like the heavenly snow divine flame that he obtained, a flame born from the primal chaos. However, the heavenly flame was already nourished to an extremely strong level. As for the heavenly snow divine flame that Xiao Chen obtained, it was extremely weak, like a baby crying piteously for food. Xiao Chen calmed down and said with a grave expression, "Chu Chaoyan, what is your purpose in luring me here? Can you tell me now? You told me that the Thunder King is missing and blasted open the tomb. What exactly are you trying to say?" Chu Chaoyan smiled and said, "Given your intelligence, you should be able to figure it out on your own. Think about it." Xiao Chen's face sank. He knew that Chu Chaoyan definitely had an ulterior motive for luring him here. He would not come here to reminisce for no reason. Xiao Chen's thoughts raced. A light flashed in his mind, and 4 words rang out. Luring the tiger away from the mountains. With a thought, Xiao Chen split his spiritual sense into 2 and spread it out frantically. Soon, the scene of the Xiao clan city and Qingyan Peak appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. It was calm and peaceful, without any ripples. Everything is fine. In that case, it is for the remaining half of the Sky Dome heart. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and looked straight at Chu Chaoyan. He said, "You want to obtain the Sky Dome heart?" Chu Chaoyan smiled and said, "You are indeed not stupid. However, it is useless for you to know now. The Sky Dome Palace should have been broken already. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. If not for you demonstrating how to break that Sky Dome Dragon formation, the Sky Dome Palace would not have been easy to break." Whoosh! Xiao Chen could not be bothered to speak nonsense with Chu Chaoyan. His figure flashed and flew forward, preparing to rush to the Sky Dome Palace. "It is not that easy to go and help." Chu Chaoyan smiled faintly. His left eye released an intense white light, and his right eye turned a fearsome black. A smile separated black and white. With Chu Chaoyan's body as the boundary, one on the left and one on the right, black and white were distinct. The black light and the white light divided the entire world into 2. It was an extremely strange sight. The black and white lights formed a formless aura that tried to swallow up Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat. This fellow had already comprehended the will of light and the will of darkness to their limits. Xiao Chen's figure flickered, and this aura forced him back. After spreading out his saber domain, the moment Xiao Chen landed, he gently pushed off with his feet. Then he shot forward like a sharp arrow, charging with an even stronger aura. Chu Chaoyan smiled faintly and spread out his sword domain as well. Then he took a step forward and charged at Xiao Chen. The 2 did not draw their sabers and swords, fighting speed with speed, only using their fists and palms. However, the saber intent and sword intent in their fists and palms were not weak at all. Although it was clearly just a clash of fists and feet, intense clanging rang out in the sky. The saber domain and the sword domain overlapped, piercing space and turning it into a mess. Xiao Chen did not use the Taiji Dao, only using his saber domain and his fists and feet to fight. The 2 knew that this was just a simple test. After 100 moves, they both pushed back 10 kilometers and faced each other from a distance. Faintly, the 2 of them emitted a sharp glow that soared into the sky, forming a formless saber and a formless sword. Suddenly, Xiaochen smiled and said, Chu Chaoyan, it looks like your cultivation of the state of primal chaos is not going well. The stronger you cultivate light and darkness, the more they oppose each other, and the harder it is to merge them. A few years ago, when Xiaochen met Chu Chaoyan, the other party could still merge light and darkness, forming a vague form of primal chaos. However, now that Chu Chaoyan grew stronger, the opposition between light and darkness intensified, making it even harder to merge them. It is enough to stop you, Chu Chaoyan said. He did not confirm or deny Xiaochen's guess. Xiaochen retorted indifferently, that might not be the case. Right after Xiaochen spoke, he drew the lunar shadow saber. Then, he used his flawless saber Dao to form an even more ferocious aura. His body merged with the saber. His clothes and hair each gave off a sharpness. Retreat. Before Xiaochen's strong aura, Chu Chaoyan did not choose to clash head-on. His body gave off a black and white light as he took 5 steps back. When he could no longer retreat, Chu Chaoyan drew his sword. Chong! Chong! When Xiaochen drew his sword, 2 sword hums rang out. Suddenly, Chu Chaoyan's body split into 2. One was clad in black robes, and the other was clad in white robes. Their appearances were the same, but their auras were different. The most important thing was that they both had a sword domain. Light sword domain and dark sword domain. Just because I did not enter the primal chaos great Tao does not mean that I have become weak. The 2 figures spoke at the same time, their voices echoing in the surroundings. Then they suppressed Xiaochen from the left and right. Invisibly, Xiaochen's saber technique was suppressed. Taiji Dao. With a thought, the primordial energy in Xiaochen's body materialized the Taiji force field as he executed the fish dragon art. Xiaochen alternated between fast and slow. After images flashed and lightning flashed in the sky, reversing the situation. Xiaochen was no longer in the mood to waste time with Chu Chaoyan. He still had to rush to the Sky Dome Palace. After 100 moves, Xiaochen directly executed the Taiji explosion. Bang! The ground under Xiaochen's feet exploded. The power of the world controlled by the Taiji force field shattered and shattered. The explosion of the Taiji force field seemed to have obliterated the laws of the Great Tao within 1 kilometer. Chu Chaoyan's black and white figures vomited blood as they flew back. After they landed, they smiled bitterly. Without primordial energy, fighting you is really at a disadvantage. Among the same generation, any outstanding talent that did not advance to martial emperor would be using half their strength to fight Xiaochen. Xiaochen snorted coldly and said, Go away. Otherwise, don't blame me for getting serious. After obstructing him until now, Xiaochen was truly enraged. He still had the peak will of thunder, the 3 layers of saber energy, and the major magic skill, Dermic World. If Chu Chaoyan continued to block him, Xiaochen would not mind using these trump cards. However, Chu Chaoyan should also have trump cards that he had not used. Defeating the other party would not be a problem. However, whether he could kill Xiaochen was uncertain. Xiaochen sheathed his swords and smiled at the same time, saying, Let's go. I hope you can make it in time. Xiaochen sheathed his saber. Then he glanced at Chu Chaoyan before leaving in a flash. How much of his strength do you think he has exposed? The white-robed Chu Chaoyan asked. The black-robed Chu Chaoyan replied unhurriedly, about 40%. It seemed like Chu Chaoyan was talking to himself, but it also seemed like the 2 of them were conversing. The scene was incredibly strange. 2 beams of light, 1 black and 1 white, merged back into Chu Chaoyan's body. Primal chaos filled his eyes as he muttered. The great chaos of the Kunlun realm has already begun. No matter what, I hope you can clear your great tribulation of wind and fire. By the time Xiaochen arrived at the Sky Dome Palace, the recently rebuilt Sky Dome Palace was in disarray again. Many cultivators lay on the ground, crying and groaning. However, most of them were fine. Their lives were not in danger. Amid the crowd, Xiaochen found old Yin. The other party's complexion was very poor, like he had aged significantly. Chapter 13:11. Xiaochen's heart sank. He knew that he was probably too late, so he walked over and asked around. Indeed, A group of mysterious people snatched away the remaining half of the Sky Dome heart. They are not demons. No. Although they were masked, I can be sure that they are not demons. They do not have the aura of a demon. Old Yun told Xiaochen about what happened back then. A group of masked people used a method similar to what Xiaochen did. They made the dragon soul in the sky clash with the Sky Dome dragon on the ground, breaking the Sky Dome dragon formation, and snatching away the Sky Dome heart. Old Yun sighed. This world is really chaotic. I believe that this group of mysterious people will snatch away the other half of the Sky Dome heart from the demons. Xiaochen was stunned. It looked like Chu Chaoyan's ambition was extraordinarily great. Unknowingly, Chu Chaoyan actually gained such a strong force in the Sky Dome realm. It was like he could occupy the entire Sky Dome realm at any time. Chu Chaoyan was just waiting for an opportunity, waiting for true chaos to descend. Old Yun continued. Right now the Bushin Palace is also very chaotic. Blue Dragon King, when you return, you have to be more careful. Xiaochen asked curiously. What do you mean? Old Yun frowned and said. There are many factions in the Bushin Palace. Everything is in chaos. I requested for reinforcements several times, but they ignored me. From the looks of it, it looks like they want to revolt and re-elect the palace master of the Bushin Palace. They simply cannot care about such a small matter. I did not receive much news while I was in the Sky Dome realm. I really don't know what happened for it to suddenly become so chaotic. Xiaochen knew very well that the Thunder King had disappeared, his fate unknown. The three holy masters were already dissatisfied with the Thunder King. It would be strange if the situation was not chaotic. However, Xiaochen could not tell Old Yun all this. That would only make him worry. Xiaochen consoled. Since the Sky Dome heart is gone, there is no need to rebuild the Sky Dome Palace. Come with me to the Xiao clan. There is a small iron defense magic formation that I laid there. Its offense is not strong, but its defense is much stronger than the Sky Dome Dragon formation. Really? Thank you, Blue Dragon King. Elder Yun said with a smile. Xiaochen sighed. Chaos was coming, and he couldn't help much. This was all he could do. He really wanted to go to the Kunlun realm to see what was going on. However, the Taiji Dao, the flawless Saber Dao, and the cultivation of Saber energy needed to be sorted out properly. He could not act rashly. 1 year. Give me 1 more year. That will be enough, Xiaochen said in a deep voice. The fact that the Sky Dome heart had fallen into Chu Chaoyan's hands was already a fact that could not be changed. Xiaochen did not care too much about what Chu Chaoyan was planning, or how much power he had in the Sky Dome realm. He only cared about the safety of his family and friends, as well as the disciples on Blue Cloud Peak. After leaving the Sky Dome Palace, Xiaochen arrived at the Xiao clan city. Then he saw Yu Chenxi and the other two, who were about to leave, in the city lord's residence. Right now, the Kunlun realm was in great chaos. However, great chaos often meant great fortuitous encounters. To the three of them, this might not be a bad thing. Xiaochen, when do you intend to return to the Kunlun realm? When will the great tribulation of wind and fire arrive? Yu Chenxi asked out of concern. Gong Yangyu and Xianyuan Zhantian were also very concerned about this problem. Everyone knew that of the 5 years that Yu Bingyan had set for Xiaochen, only 1.5 years remained. As the time drew closer, it was hard for Xiaochen's good friends to not worry. Xiaochen smiled faintly, not avoiding this question. There is still about 1 more year. I have gained something in the Kunlun realm, and need to properly digest it. As for the great tribulation of wind and fire, it might come at any time. Let nature take its course. When he spoke, his body exuded a sense of tranquility, allowing others to feel his tranquility. Yu Chenxi and the other two felt slightly relieved. They knew that Xiaochen's mentality was much better than theirs. This time, when you go to the Kunlun realm, you should have a great fortuitous encounter. Grasp it well, and it won't be hard to gain something. Remember, your lives are the most important. Xianyuan Zhantian and the others felt suspicious. Xiaochen seemed to know something, but he did not say it clearly. They had not left the Sky Dome realm, so how did Xiaochen know the situation of the Kunlun realm like the back of his hand? Xiaochen, can you explain? Xiaochen shook his head and said, there is no need to say too much. You will understand when you get there. In that case, we will take our leave first. Right. I will leave the 3 juniors of my Xiao clan to you as well. After sending off the 3 with his eyes, Xiao Chun gave his blessings in his heart. He only hoped that his 3 friends would be able to obtain some peace in this chaotic world. Right now, Xiao Chun was like duckweed. If he was not careful, he could get scattered by the wind and waves. There was not much he could do. If he could not clear his great tribulation of wind and fire, he would not be able to protect himself in this chaotic world. Shaking his head, Xiao Chun met with his father. Then, he started to think about how to strengthen the small iron defense magic formation around the city lord's residence. Spring passed and autumn arrived. In this sky dome realm, Xiao Chun traveled back and forth between the Xiao clan and Qingyan Peak. Occasionally, he would go out and enjoy the scenery. There was not much time left for Xiao Chun. However, he did not just enter closed-door cultivation. Instead, he moved about frequently. Amidst the mountains and rivers, he savored the Taiji Dao and tempered his mental state. He let nature take its course and did not dwell on the details. Seven Horn Mountain, White Water City, the Deep Sea. He walked the paths that he had taken in the past. Finally, he arrived at the most mysterious place of the Sky Dome realm, the ancient desolate tower. Back then, Xiao Chun had fought against the outstanding talents of the various nations in the ancient desolate tower. Only then did he gain some fame as the white-robed bladesman. Now that he was in Desolate City again, the bewildering formation that hid the ancient desolate tower naturally did not hinder Xiao Chun. He immediately saw that mysterious ancient desolate tower. The ancient desolate tower had existed since the time of the Tianwu dynasty. After understanding the strength of the first-generation Tianwu emperor, Xiao Chun even felt that the first-generation Tianwu emperor might have personally built this ancient desolate tower for the sake of tempering the royal clan's disciples. Ao Jiao, speaking of which, why did you make me stop at the 8th floor back then and not go to the 9th floor? You should be able to tell me this secret now, right? Xiao Chun asked casually as he recalled a matter from the past. That year, Xiao Chun revealed his brilliance among the outstanding talents of the various nations. He overcame all the difficulties and killed his way to the 8th floor. Later, due to Ao Jiao's words, Xiao Chun gave up on the idea of entering the 9th floor. That was a small regret. Originally, Xiao Chun had expected that Ao Jiao would not make things difficult for him now. Who knew? After Xiao Chun spoke for a long time, he did not hear a reply from Ao Jiao. He could not help feeling curious. Now, Xiao Chun's strength was overwhelming, comparable to Emperor Wu's. Even Chu Chaoyan had to give way to Xiao Chun, not daring to challenge him. To think that Ao Jiao was still worried. What exactly was in the ancient desolate tower's 9th floor for Ao Jiao to be so worried? Just as Xiao Chun was about to continue asking, Ao Jiao flew out of the immortal spirit ring. She said there is a mirror in there called the 3-life mirror. It can show the future and the past. Those who enter the 9th floor will have another chance to choose whether to look at the past or the future. An interested expression appeared in Xiao Chun's eyes. And then, Sang Mu chose to look at the future. In the end, he saw his body shattering and his Dao falling. After that, it really came true. No matter how talented he was in the Kunlun realm, he could not change it. Xiao Chun's expression froze. When he heard Ao Jiao's sullen tone, he said, "Sorry, I should not have asked." Xiao Chun finally understood why Ao Jiao did not want him to go to the 9th floor. She was afraid that he would end up like the Thunder King Sang Mu, defeated by fate. Ao Jiao smiled and said, "It's fine. There is no need to hide these things from you. The choice is up to you." Xiao Chun thought to himself, it would have been fine if I did not know about it in the past. Now that I know about the 3-life mirror on the 9th floor, I have to make a trip there. With Xiao Chun's current strength, the various restrictions of the ancient desolate tower were naturally ineffective. If he wanted to enter, he just had to forcibly tear space. However, how should he choose? Look at the past or the future? The Thunder King felt that there was nothing to see in the past, so he chose the future. In the end, he ended up dying without a complete corpse. In the end, it really came true. When Xiao Chun thought about it, it did feel somewhat horrifying. Before fate, a single person's effort was insignificant. No matter how hard he tried, he could not change it. Little Ao Jiao, wait here for a while. I'll go in and take a look. Without waiting for Ao Jiao to reply, Xiaochen tore space and broke the various restrictions in space. Then he silently arrived at the 9th floor of the ancient desolate tower. Indeed, it was as Ao Jiao said. The empty 9th floor only had a mirror in the center. Aside from that, there was nothing else. The mirror was close to 2 meters tall. Its surface was as smooth as water. When Xiaochen entered, he kicked up a strong wind, causing the mirror to ripple. Strange, you are already as strong as a half-step Emperor Wu. That's not right. You are even stronger than a regular Emperor Wu. How are you able to enter the ancient desolate tower? A cute girl appeared in the 3-life mirror. She stared at Xiaochen and asked, finding it strange. Xiaochen smiled and said, "You must be the item spirit of the 3-life mirror, right? Although I did not follow the rules and barged in, I managed to get here step by step. It's just that I gave up this opportunity back then. It's not too late to do it now, right?" The pretty girl in the mirror giggled and said, "So that's how it is. You do have the aura of someone who cleared the earlier stages. In that case, it is not too late. If not for the mark of the earlier stages, even if you managed to barge in, Little 3 would not be able to reveal anything about you." Xiaochen walked forward and looked at the lively item spirit. He asked, "Do you remember the person who came here the last time?" The pretty girl's eyes sparkled. She smiled in a somewhat infatuated manner and said, "Of course I remember. He was a very handsome fellow, even more handsome than you. However, he did not have the air you have. If I had to choose, I would be in a difficult position. I do not know who to choose. Should I choose the handsome and sunny type or the elegant and quiet type? How difficult, how difficult. How should I choose?" In the mirror, the pretty girl completely forgot about Xiaochen's existence. She tilted her head and rubbed her chin, appearing to be in a difficult position. Cold sweat appeared on Xiaochen's forehead. This item spirit had been lonely for a long time. It had not spoken for thousands of years, but when it did, it would say a lot. Furthermore, it was infatuated. He is dead. Is he really dead? The pretty girl was somewhat stunned at first. Then she smiled excitedly and said, "Little 3 is really incredible. It got it right again." Chapter 13:12. Xiaochen felt helpless. There was really no way to hate this kind of girl. Furthermore, she was an item spirit. She spoke without thinking, but her heart was rather pure. I knew you wouldn't blame Little 3. Then tell me, do you choose to look at the past or the future? Looking at the past is giving you a chance to see the various things of your previous life. Looking at the future is letting you see the joys and sorrows of this life. The little beauty smiled as she introduced. She explained in detail, revealing her chatterbox nature. You choose the past or the future? Little 3 smiled mischievously. You only have one chance. Xiaochen opened his mouth, but he still found it hard to choose. Should he look at the past or the future? What's wrong? You can't decide? Do you need Little 3 to help you decide? The little beauty asked, giggling. Xiaochen thought for a while before saying, I suddenly thought of something. Be it the past or the future, it cannot be changed. In that case, what is the point of looking at it or not? The past has already happened. Of course, it cannot be changed. However, although the future did not happen, it cannot be changed. The so-called fate was already decided the moment you spoke. Xiaochen smiled and said, Keep it simple. Just nod and say that I'm right. There's no need for a long explanation. The little beauty smiled bashfully and said, How is that possible? It's just that Little 3 has not met a living person for too long, and could not help but speak insincerely. Stop. Xiaochen stretched out his hand to stop the other party. This little beauty's words gave him a headache. He finally witnessed the terror of a chatterbox. Little 3 covered her mouth and smiled. All right, let's stop talking. If you can't decide, let the heavens decide. Xiaochen asked curiously. What do you mean? Toss out a prop, and you make the decision in whatever direction it is thrown. When Xiaochen heard that, he hesitated. Let the heavens decide? Little 3 did not say anything, waiting for Xiaochen to answer. After muttering to himself for a while, Xiaochun sighed softly. Since when did his courage fall to such a level? To think that the past and the future had to be decided by the heavens. Indeed, time had worn down his edge. If he had come up here back then, he would have chosen to look at the future without any hesitation. Now that he had restrained his sharpness and stood in a high position, he became fearful instead. How is it? Do you need it? Xiaochun shook his head. No, I've made up my mind. I don't believe in fate. I only believe in myself. Show me my past. I want to see my past life. No matter what happened in the future, it was the result of his own decisions. It had nothing to do with fate. He wanted to see the past. He was also curious about how he had transmigrated. He occupied the body named Xiaochun, devoured his soul, inherited the will of the original Xiaochun, and lived in this world. Was the so-called previous life the previous life of that Earth Xiaochun, or the original Xiaochun of the Sky Dome realm? Little Three pinched his chin and said, past lives. Very few people look at their past lives. They don't understand what's there to look at. But Big Brother White Clothes, since you've made your choice, Little Three won't refuse. Put your hand in. Xiaochun followed Little Three's instructions, and directly extended his hand into the mirror. What a white hand. How pretty. It's very elegant and full of spiritual energy. Little Three really likes it. So, you are called Xiaochun. However, others call you the white-robed bladesman. Little Three is not wrong. The pretty little girl smiled as she held Xiaochun's hand and opened her large, cute eyes wide. Xiaochun said helplessly, can we begin now? Yes, let's begin. I'll bring Big Brother White Clothes to see your past life. No matter what happens, don't let go of my hand. I'm going to pull you into this three-life mirror. Xiao. The pretty little girl pulled hard, and Xiaochun felt like his soul was being pulled out. The world spun around him, and he felt dizzy. Xiaochun turned his head and saw that his body still maintained the same posture as before, like a statue, not moving at all. Don't look back. What you need to do now is look forward. Xiaochun turned his head and looked to the front. A star turned into a flame and fell from the sky. There was no way to avoid it. Surging heat waves and overwhelming ferocious might surged over. Xiaochun paled in fright and tried to move away on the spot. However, he discovered that Little Three was holding his hand tightly, preventing him from escaping. Before he could cry out, he closed his eyes, and the fireball passed through him and landed on the ground. The fireball smashed open a huge crater. Then it took human form. Its life essence turned into multicolored light and scattered like fireworks. Little Three giggled endlessly. Only then did Xiaochun react. Everything in front of him was the past. It was impossible for it to injure him. Little Three was just scaring him on purpose. I'll settle the score with her later. Xiaochun did not have time to care about Little Three's little tricks. He focused on the scene before him. The scene before him was like the end of the world. There was an unimaginably vast and flourishing palace in the sky. The palace fell apart and flames blazed. All sorts of tender spirit herbs were burned away. The glorious buildings turned into rubble. However, these were not the scariest things. The scariest were the stars in the sky. Only now did Xiaochun see clearly that these stars were not real stars but people. However, these people were too strong, unimaginably strong. Before they died, they gave off a star-like light. Stars fell from the sky. Space shattered, laws collapsed and order ceased to exist. The sky fell and the earth cracked. Xiaochun's mind boomed. This was the scene of the immortal epic's destruction. How could he have seen such a scene in his previous life? Ah, how incredible! Elder Brother White Robes was actually an immortal in his previous life. Little Three said with a smile as she held Xiaochun's hand and walked through the space where the immortals fell. Xiaochun found it strange. He asked, "You don't seem surprised. Have you seen immortals before?" Little Three puffed out her chest and said, They are just immortals." Little Three's creator could be considered a major character in the heavenly court. That was a major character who jumped out of the cycle of reincarnation, undying and able to twist time and space. In the past, there were some people who were immortals in their previous lives. However, that is not a big deal. Just looking at the things of my previous life is enough. The past is just a passing cloud. It will not be of much help to this life. Xiaochen did not say anything. He continued to watch. He wanted to know if this was Earth's previous life or the Sky Dome realm's Xiaochen's previous life. Hey, I found you. Little Three's eyes lit up as she led Xiaochen over. Space and time twisted, and the scene suddenly changed. Xiaochen arrived in a world of black and white. 18 layers of purgatory, gates of life and death, Yellow Springs Road. Xiaochen immediately remembered. What is this place? It looks so familiar. Isn't this the Yellow Springs Road, the 18 layers of purgatory that I went to in the past? In the Yellow Springs Road, the last group of immortals of the immortal epic gathered together with fatigued expressions and weak auras. Among the immortals, there was a person dressed in white, looking spotless. He stood at the side, listening to the discussion of the others without saying a word. Xiaochen looked at this person. He had a vague feeling that made his heart skip a beat. Was this how I looked in my previous life? Damn it! The immortal epic collapsed, and this Kitagarbha Bodhisattva actually took advantage of the situation, occupying the entire purgatory. This bald monk is really disgusting. Now that the purgatory is in chaos, he actually took advantage of the situation to refine the sea of bitterness and absorb the power of faith. He blocked the 6 paths of reincarnation, not letting us leave. The group of immortals felt very angry. However, their strength had dropped significantly. They could not do anything to the tyrannical Kitagarbha Bodhisattva. The laws changed, and the immortal epic came to an end. This group of immortals suffered a destructive blow. Although the Buddhist cultivators were affected as well, they quickly adapted to the situation. The damage to Meru Mountain was much smaller. I'll go and have a chat with him. A murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the white-clad immortal, who had been silent all this while. Then he walked forward. Sky Dome Immortal Lord, don't be rash, the other immortals immediately exclaimed. Although the Sky Dome Immortal Lord said to go and have a chat, everyone knew that the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva would not agree. There would definitely be a huge battle. Now that the immortal epic was slowly passing, they could feel their strength weakening. They simply could not fight with this Kitagarbha Bodhisattva. A bolt of lightning flashed in Xiaochen's mind, stunning him. He had clearly heard and seen that those people were calling out the Sky Dome Immortal Lord, the leader of the 3,000 Immortal Lords. Was that the Sky Dome Immortal Lord in my previous life? Xiaochen muttered in some disbelief, feeling like he was dreaming. Right now, Xiaochen had not confirmed whether the Sky Dome Immortal Lord was his previous life or the original Xiaochen's previous life. I have to go and take a look. Feeling that he was getting closer to the answer, Xiaochen quickly chased after the Sky Dome Immortal Lord with Little Three. He wanted to see how the Sky Dome Immortal Lord negotiated with the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva. In the Sea of Bitterness, the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's colossal body gave off layers of Buddhist light. There were 3,000 arhats around him, chanting Buddhist chants and holding Buddhist prayer beads in their hands, continuously purifying the vast number of aggrieved spirits. Hell was shattered, and countless wandering spirits turned into light and entered the Buddhist light behind the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva. It was like there was a nation there. Xiaochen felt startled. Back then, when he saw the headless body of the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva, the might and pressure from it was already horrifying enough. However, compared to now, it was completely different. The Sea of Bitterness below the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva was vast and boundless. It was several times larger than the Sea of Bitterness 10,000 years later. When the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva saw the Sky Dome Immortal Lord arrive, he did not even open his eyes. He said indifferently, Sky Dome Immortal Lord, I already told you immortals to leave quickly. This Bodhisattva has already made a great vow. I swear not to become a Buddha until hell is empty. The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's gentle words were supported by Buddhist might, lingering in the surroundings for a long time. The words, I swear not to become a Buddha until hell is empty, made the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's Buddhist light even brighter. With one look, one could put down the butcher's knife and kneel before Buddha. Compared to the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's colossal body, the white-clad Sky Dome Immortal Lord looked pitifully insignificant as he walked on the Sea of Bitterness. However, The Sky Dome Immortal Lord's outstanding and pure aura was very dazzling when compared to the thousands of aggrieved spirits and wild spirits around him. With one glance, one could discover his extraordinariness. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord looked at the aggrieved spirits in the sea of bitterness around him. Then he looked at the 3,000 arhats beside the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva, and the vast Buddhist nation behind him. In the midst of great chaos, there would always be ambitious people stirring up trouble. Clearly, this Kitagarbha Bodhisattva before him was one such person. He swore not to become a Buddha until hell was empty. However, once he became a Buddha, he would become the new epic master. Chapter 13:13. Without saying a word, he struck out with his palm. Boom. When the Sky Dome Immortal Lord threw a palm strike, his body swelled with the wind. When the palm wind landed, his body was already comparable to the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva's. Immortal might spread out from his body, sweeping away all the Buddhist light in this sea of bitterness. Amidst the loud explosion, the Buddhist kingdom behind Kitagarbha Bodhisattva shattered, scattering light everywhere. The layers of Buddhist light on his body dimmed several times in an instant. In his rage, the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva burned with rage. Buddhist light covered his entire body. Boom. What answered the Sky Dome Immortal Lord was the Sky Dome Immortal Lord's second palm strike. When this palm strike landed, the 3,000 arhats all died. The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva felt somewhat afraid. He saw a kind of coldness in the Sky Dome Immortal Lord. It was a coldness that made one forget about life and death. Nothing mattered, including one's own life. Right now he was extremely regretful. This kind of person could not be entangled at all. Even if he killed him, he would still be the one to suffer a loss. One of these two palm strikes destroyed his Buddhist kingdom, and the other destroyed his 3,000 arhats. Who knew how long it would take for him to recover? It was because of these two palm strikes that the Qing Emperor had the opportunity to behead him. The so-called karma had already been planted long ago. Without these two palm strikes, none of the subsequent events would have happened. Stop. I'll let you go, Kitagarbha said. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord withdrew his hand, and his figure shrank as he vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood. When the blood landed in the sea of bitterness, it immediately spread out and burned the millions of aggrieved spirits to death. Shaochen thought to himself that his previous life was so domineering. With just 2 palm strikes, Shaochen forced the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva to obediently let him pass without saying a word. Similarly, the Sky Dome Immortal Lord did not say anything as he quickly returned. He came to a group of immortals and said calmly, "It's done." The last of the immortals were overjoyed, and a smile appeared on their tired faces. All right, the 6 paths of reincarnation should still be intact. We can leave through the heavenly Tao. There's always a way out. There's always a chance. We've finally escaped this calamity. When the new era stabilizes, we can come back and rebuild the celestial world, restoring our glory. That's right. As long as the immortals don't die, the world will still be ours. Seeing the group of excited immortals, the Sky Dome Immortal Lord remained silent, not saying anything. But when the group of immortals arrived before the 6 paths of reincarnation, they were all dumbfounded. Without exception, the 6 paths of reincarnation had all shattered. It's over, everything is over. The heavens are going to exterminate the immortal. Their fate energy has reached its end. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord stretched out a finger and executed a supreme magic skill. The human path in the 6 paths of reincarnation started to slowly heal. When the Sky Dome Immortal Lord finished executing the magic skill, the human path of reincarnation completely recovered. Sky Dome Immortal Lord, how can you still have such strong magic energy? The reconstruction of the human Tao cycle is useless to us. Sky Dome Immortal Lord, go and rebuild the heavenly Tao cycle. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord shook his head and said, "If you want to leave, leave now. I have not reconstructed the cycle of reincarnation. It is only temporarily restored. I do not know when it will shatter. However, the path of reincarnation is connected to space and time. There definitely won't be any immortal chi there. If we go, we'll just be waiting for death." That's right. Only the heavenly Tao's cycle of reincarnation, can allow us to cultivate and restore our glory. Whoosh! The Sky Dome Immortal Lord did not say anything more. His figure flashed as he went through the cycle of reincarnation. The other immortals showed sorrowful and helpless expressions. They sighed repeatedly and shook their heads as they followed in. The scene changed. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord and the last group of immortals arrived in a savage world. Not only did this world not have immortal chi, but it was also filled with danger. The immortals used their remnant magic energy to defeat the natives of this savage world. Then they started to rebuild this world. Time passed. 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100 million years. The immortals died one after another. With each death, the Sky Dome Immortal Lord would bury them, leaving behind a nameless gravestone. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord ran all over the place, refining all sorts of medicinal pills, doing his best to extend the lifespans of the other immortals. However, there was nothing that could be done. There was no immortal chi on Earth. Like they said, these immortals could only silently wait for death. Xiaochen could feel the sorrow in the Sky Dome Immortal Lord's heart. That heart of his had actually died long ago. Time passed slowly. The original savage world had already changed. Tall buildings, planes, and trains had appeared long ago. When Xiaochen saw this, he understood everything. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord was Xiaochen's previous incarnation. That savage world was the Earth that he once lived on. Little San was astonished again and again. Her chatterbox nature made her chatter nonstop. Every time she saw something from Earth, she would mutter to herself for a long time. However, Xiaochen did not hear a single word. Indeed, his arrival in this world was not a coincidence. There had never been any coincidences in this world. Everything was predestined. Clearly, the final luck of the immortal epic landed on the Sky Dome Immortal Lord. However, this was not a good thing. Even the Sky Dome Immortal Lord could not avoid death. Before he died, he had to endure boundless loneliness. He had to watch his friends die one by one and personally build gravestones for them. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord could only watch as an epic ended in his own hands, unable to reverse the situation. No one could understand such grief. In the end, all the immortals died, leaving only the Sky Dome Immortal Lord alone in this world. The Sky Dome Immortal Lord's aura grew increasingly weaker. Occasionally, he made some calculations and looked at the starry heavens, like he was waiting for something in the final moments of his life. Xiaochen calmed himself. He had figured out several things. He knew that the answer he had been seeking would appear soon. A saber light tore through the starry heavens. Then an azure figure flashed and headed for Earth. This figure was in a sorry state. His clothes were tattered, and he looked incredibly weak, like he was severely injured. Xiaochen's eyes lit up as he held his breath and focused. It's here. Everything, all the answers, will be revealed soon. However, just as that azure figure raised his head and Xiaochen saw his appearance, a gaze looked toward Xiaochen and Little Three. A gaze looked at Xiaochen and Little Three. It was the Sky Dome Immortal Lord. It was like the Sky Dome Immortal Lord discovered two people sneaking around in the past. This made Xiaochen's and Little Three's hearts tighten at the same time. Bang! Before the two could react, they saw the Sky Dome Immortal Lord send out a palm strike. It was like the two suffered a heavy blow and went flying back. This startled Xiaochen awake. When he recovered his wits, he discovered that he was already on the 9th floor of the ancient desolate tower. Everything in the past, all the various scenes, felt like a dream. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Little Three is in so much pain. In the three-life mirror, the pretty item spirit teared up in pain as she rolled on the ground, acting like a spoiled child. Get up! Get up! Quickly tell me what's going on. Xiaochen exclaimed excitedly as he looked at the pretty little girl in the mirror. This was simply too strange. When the Sky Dome Immortal Lord attacked in the three-life mirror, he could still attack them. The palm strike from Xiaochen's previous life forced his current self out. Furthermore, this happened at the most crucial moment. When Xiaochen was about to see the azure-robed bladesman, he could not see anything. Could it be that the Sky Dome Immortal Lord is not dead yet? Little Three stood up and stretched her neck and arms. Then she said doubtfully, Little Three does not know what's going on either. Elder brother White Robes, don't worry. Let Little Three help you think about what exactly is going on. The pretty little girl rubbed her chin and frowned. Then, she paced back and forth in the mirror, muttering to herself. The past is already in the past. First of all, I can be sure that this person is already dead. In that case, that palm strike earlier is easy to explain. Some strong immortals are good at divination. It is not impossible for them to predict certain things in the future. Hee. Little 3 is really smart. That must be the case. Little 3 said excitedly to Xiao Chun. Elder brother White Robes, it is like this. This Sky Dome Immortal Lord already predicted that someone would peek at this scene in the future. Hence, he made a backup plan at that time, erasing this part of the past so that no one could see it. Xiao Chun asked, feeling depressed. How can it be like this? Isn't your 3-life mirror supposed to be able to see the various things of the past? Little 3 narrowed her eyes and smiled embarrassedly. That is true. Actually, Little 3 was created by an immortal. Several immortals had means to avoid being peeked at. The magic skills and strength of the immortals from the immortal epoch are not something you can imagine now. Just think about it. Since the 3-life mirror can see the past and the future, naturally, the immortals would have means to counter it. After all, if someone saw their future and past, it would be equivalent to knowing all their karma. To immortals, that would be very dangerous. Xiao Chun said in understanding. That is to say, the Sky Dome Immortal Lord could not be sure who the person peeking at the past was. However, out of caution, he did not allow anyone to see it. Yes. That's it. Elder brother White Robes, you are really smart. So don't be unhappy. Little 3 said with a smile after she figured it out. Xiao Chun thought to himself. If he did not guess wrong, that azure-clad bladesman was definitely the Qing Emperor. That azure-clad bladesman gave off saber intent. Back then, the Qing Emperor happened to kill the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva, leaving behind a saber light in the Yellow Springs land. It was very likely that the Qing Emperor had gone through the cycle of reincarnation and arrived on Earth in a space-time tunnel. Through this scene of Xiao Chun's previous life, he could connect all the clues together. 10,000 years ago, the Qing Emperor fought with the final Tianwu Emperor. Then he fought with the 18 demon monarchs. After he returned to the Sky Dome realm, the powerhouses of the various races surrounded and attacked him. The Qing Emperor was already besieged on all sides and had nowhere to go. Left with no choice, he came to the Yellow Springs Road. After traveling through the space-time tunnel, he arrived on Earth and saw the dying Sky Dome Immortal Lord. In that case, the Sky Dome Immortal Lord's purchase of the Compendium of Cultivation and the so-called Immortal Pill might not have been as simple as a coincidence. As the Sky Dome Immortal Lord's reincarnation, it was logical for him to obtain the luck of the Sky Dome realm. As for the Sky Dome Immortal Lord, he possessed the final luck of the immortal epoch. His rise in the Kunlun realm could also be explained. Karma. Without the karma of the previous life, there would not be the current karma. What a great scheme. Just thinking about it made Xiao Chun tremble in fear. However, was it the Qing Emperor who laid this scheme, or the Sky Dome Immortal Lord himself? 10,000 years ago, the Qing Emperor was so strong, who led the entire Kunlun realm to attack him. All this was still a mystery. Xiao Chun narrowed his eyes and said, I have to become a martial emperor. Only by going to the Blue Dragon Palace can I know everything that happened back then. Chapter 13-14. Hee. Elder brother White Robes, do you want to see the future? See if you can become a martial emperor. Little 3 suddenly asked in anticipation. Curious, Xiao Chun asked. Didn't you say that the past and the future can only be seen once? Little 3 smiled and said, Indeed. However, didn't Elder brother White Robes not finish seeing the past? Naturally, Little 3 has to make it up to you. Xiao Chun smiled faintly and said, Originally, I had some reservations about you. I did not expect you to have such thoughts. Ha! Little 3 is very kind-hearted. How about it? Do you want it? Xiao Chun shook his head and said decisively, Thank you. However, I do not want to see what the future is like. I do not even need to look to know my future. I will either live a grand life or die a grand death. No matter what the result is, I will not regret it. That was right. After seeing through the past, Xiao Chen's heart became clearer, and he understood himself better. He was born extraordinary. Whether he was willing or not, the Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen would live a grand life. He would either be eternal like the sun or like a meteor, disappearing in a flash. However, so what if he was a meteor? There were only 4 words in life: no regrets. When Little Three heard Xiao Chen's words, her expression changed. Elder brother White Robes, can you help me? Just take a look. What do you mean? Since Little Three was created, it has always been in this ancient desolate tower. 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years, it has always been here. In the past, when Master was still around, he said that if one day I met a person whose past I could not see through and whose future I could not see through, then Little Three could leave. The liveliness on the pretty item spirit's face vanished. Her eyes turned slightly moist as she looked at Xiao Chen in anticipation. Many years have passed, and Little Three has been waiting. However, there has never been a person whose past I could not see through. There has never been a person whose future I could not see through. Elder brother White Robes, please help me. Let's see your future, alright? Xiao Chen could not see through the past. As long as he could not see through the future, then he was right. Xiao Chen looked around. There might not even be a single person in the 9th floor of the ancient desolate tower every few thousand years. The person who created the 3-life mirror was very cruel, locking up a little girl here for thousands or tens of thousands of years, not allowing her to go. You want to leave? Xiao Chen asked calmly. A trace of loneliness and solitude appeared on Little Three's face. I've seen so many people's past lives and pasts, but Little Three doesn't have a past life or a future. Xiao Chen felt sorrowful. He stretched out his hand and placed it in the 3-life mirror. Then he looked at the beautiful artifact spirit and said, "Grab my hand. I will bring you away." Little Three smiled happily and said, "All right, I'll bring Brother White Robes to see the future." "There's no need. I'll just take you away." Just as the beautiful artifact spirit was about to drag Xiao Chen in, Xiao Chen suddenly turned around and grabbed Little Three's hand, forcefully pulling. Under Little Three's astonished gaze, he forcibly pulled her out. Hua! Little Three's body passed through the water curtain-like mirror, and walked out incredulously. As she looked around, her adorable face filled with shock. After a while, Little Three felt both startled and happy. Elder brother White Robes, why? Xiao Chen smiled calmly and said, "Everyone has to live for themselves. Why is it that you have to be trapped here for countless years with just one sentence from that person? Why is it that I have to see my future just because of one sentence from that person? I don't want to see it." The beautiful artifact spirit was stunned by Xiao Chen's words. She felt somewhat conflicted and vexed. However, suddenly Little Three laughed happily. "Ha ha ha. That's right. It can't be wrong. Elder brother White Robes is you. The past that I can't see through. The future that I can't see through. If you don't even let me see, how can I see through the future? The past that I can't see through, the future that I can't see through." The White Robe Xiao Chen was the person destined to bring her away from this place. This stunned Xiao Chen. How could it be like this? By doing the exact opposite, he fulfilled the requirements of the 3-life mirror's original owner. Little Three stretched out her hand and waved, causing the 3-life mirror to shrink into an ordinary-sized mirror. Then she held it in her hand and said, "Come, let's leave this place." Xiao Chen prepared to use the same trick again, shattering space and breaking the many restrictions to leave this place. "There is no need to go through so much trouble. I'll bring you out directly." Holding Xiao Chen's hand, Little Three's figure flashed, and she easily brought him away from this place. Xiao Chen felt shocked in his heart. This instant movement technique was truly incredible. It was much more brilliant than when he tore space. Space did not break at all, and it flickered. This gave Xiao Chen the feeling of a transportation formation. Perhaps this was the true state of space. It was much stronger than the barbaric method of tearing space. However, this was not too strange either. The 3-life mirror could see the past and predict the future. Clearly, its creator had deep attainments in the space-time Tao. If he was able to grasp even the time Tao so clearly, there was no doubt that he would be able to grasp the space Tao. Little 3 explained, hee hee. This is the minor universe movement magic ability. It requires extremely high attainments in the state of space before one can practice it. It looks very incredible. However, practically all the immortals back then knew it. The difficult part is the minor universe movement. Xiaochen nodded, indicating that he somewhat understood. Ao Jiao had been waiting for a long time and felt incredibly anxious. When she saw little 3 beside Xiaochen, she exclaimed in shock, Xiaochen, why did you bring this nagger out? Little 3's eyes lit up. She smiled and said, Little Ao Jiao. Hee hee. It's actually you. It has been a long, long time. Elder sister Little 3 misses you very much. Ao Jiao showed a stern expression, ignoring Little 3. Then she looked at Xiaochen and asked, Have you seen the future? What is it like? Xiaochen smiled and said, Don't worry. I chose the past and did not look at the future. Upon hearing this, Ao Jiao heaved a clear sigh of relief. Then Xiaochen explained the matter of Little 3 in detail. When Xiaochen heard that Little 3 would be following them temporarily, he smiled and said, Little 3. Little 3. You really are a Little 3. Haha. Little Ao Jiao, you are actually jealous. It looks like Little 3 is rather charming. Little 3 covered her mouth as she laughed, feeling very cocky. When Xiaochen saw the two arguing with each other, he smiled bitterly and could not be bothered with them. He walked straight away, preparing to return to Qingyan Peak. He had already spent enough time in the Sky Dome realm. In another month, he would have only half a year left of his 5-year deadline. At that time, his peaceful days would come to an end, and he would have to go to the Kunlun realm. When Ao Jiao and Little 3 saw Xiaochen leave, they quickly followed. When they saw Ao Jiao enter the immortal spirit ring, Little 3 turned into a beam of light and entered as well. For the past year, Xiaochen had spent most of his time sightseeing, retracing the steps he had taken. The trip to the ancient desolate tower had put an end to this part of his journey, giving him one last thought. The so-called harvest could only be described with one word: peace. The 2.5 years in the Sky Dome realm were a rare period of leisure for Xiaochen. After another month, he would go to the Kunlun realm. To Xiaochen, peace was an extremely extravagant term. However, Xiaochen had long understood that he had an extraordinary background. He could not truly remain peaceful. This peace was just to welcome an even greater storm, the Great Tribulation of Wind and Fire. In the Great Tribulation of Wind and Fire, one would either live with a bang or die with a bang. In the back mountain of Qingyan Peak, Xiaochen practiced all sorts of martial techniques, digesting what he had gained in the past year. Within the Taiji force field, Xiaochen's body alternated between fast and slow movements as he moved about. Sometimes he was like a blue dragon going out to sea, moving the clouds in all directions. Sometimes he was like an immortal fish swinging its tail, nimble and ever-changing. Suddenly, Xiaochen drew his saber, and his saber domain spread out. Within 1 kilometer, the saber domain and the Taiji force field overlapped, forming the strange and unfathomable Taiji saber domain. The saber intent turned into a dragon and split into two, one yin and one yang. One bright and one dark, one left and one right. They formed a simple Taiji diagram of the great Tao on the ground. As Xiaochen stood in the middle, his saber light became unfathomable. Yang energy was ferocious and tyrannical, howling with rage. Yin energy used softness to overcome hardness, formless and invisible. Executing the fish dragon step, Xiaochen's body appeared and disappeared in the Taiji saber domain. At one moment, he was boundlessly ferocious with a flourishing aura. At another, he was as still as water, formless and invisible. Yin and Yang merged. Taiji saber domain merge. With a thought, the two dragons that formed the Taiji saber domain intertwined like snakes and merged into Xiaochen's body. Immediately, the saber released a simple and unadorned light. Xiaochen's eyes were as clear as water. As he grasped his saber, he thrust it forward. Xiaochen's body slid forward. Everywhere the tip of the saber passed, space silently split in half. There was only one point at the tip of the saber. However, this one-point attack opened a door to another world. Taiji saber domain explode. Xiaochen sheathed his saber. The peaceful and tranquil aura within 1 kilometer suddenly turned into a great flood and ferocious beast, completely unpredictable. This Taiji explosion was different from the previous few times. This time, everyone heard only one sound from the Taiji explosion, the ferocious roar of the saber. This was the eruption of the saber, the rage of the saber, the ferocity of the saber. The sound of the saber was like the wind in space, buzzing loudly. The entire world trembled. When Xiaochen looked at the results of his 1 year of cultivation, he revealed a satisfied expression. Even though his cultivation had not increased, his accumulations had increased once more. In this peaceful and tranquil state of mind, Xiaochen's cultivation of the Taiji Dao advanced to the next level. One did not have to torture oneself half to death in order to increase one's strength. The improvement of one's mental state often brought unexpected surprises. With my current strength, I should not have to fear a third heaven Emperor Wu. Xiaochen said calmly. Even if it is a third heaven Emperor Wu, the peak, I am confident of defeating my opponent. The third heaven was a hurdle. Within the third heaven, there were only minor heavenly Emperor Wu. Many of the old seniors did not dare to undergo their lightning tribulations, and would remain in the third heaven for 1,000 years, even 2,000 years. If he ran into such an old monster, Xiaochen could not guarantee that he would be unrivaled among the third heaven Emperor Wu. When Xiaochen looked up, he vaguely saw an emperor's door in the sky. This was not an illusion. Every blue-robed emperor, who was about to undergo his great tribulation of wind and fire, would see this emperor's door. When the great tribulation of wind and fire descended, this emperor's door would appear in the real world. Steps of different colors would descend. These steps were known as the Emperor's Road. Each step was a hurdle, and each step was a tribulation. If one could clear the great tribulation of wind and fire, and reach the end of the steps, they would be able to open the Emperor's door. Chapter 13-15. Xiaochen entered the realm that all cultivators dreamed of. Since ancient times, countless heroes and outstanding talents have fallen on this Emperor's Road. As he looked at the Emperor's door hidden between reality and fantasy, Xiaochen's emotions were complicated. There was fervor, fear, and desire. However, they all turned to calm in the end. There is still half a year. The great tribulation of wind and fire is drawing closer. It is time for me to return to the Kunlun realm. Xiaochen muttered to himself as he sorted out his emotions. After a simple farewell to Lu Suifeng and the Xiao clan's relatives, he started his own journey back to the city. Xiaochen had not returned for 2.5 years. He did not know how chaotic the entire Kunlun realm was. Was the Thunder King still missing? Was he alive or dead? What kind of waves would his Dragon's Gate experience in this great chaos? There was also the friends who came to congratulate him at the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. Were they doing well in this great chaos? Xiaochen really wanted to know. Yingyu sent Xiaochen off at the transportation formation in the Great Qin Nation's royal palace. Yingyu said somewhat worriedly, "Take care on the way." The Ying clan sent news from the Kunlun realm. Right now the Kunlun realm is very chaotic. Several older generation people died mysteriously. Some of the blue-robed emperor even cleared his great tribulation of wind and fire. Everyone can feel that the world is changing. Xiaochen frowned and asked, "Is it that serious?" Xiaochen already knew that the Kunlun realm was in great chaos. However, he did not expect it to be this chaotic, far worse than he imagined. Yingyu sighed softly. "Actually, from the moment the demons made a move to snatch the Sky Dome heart, I already guessed that there would be great chaos. However, the great chaos this time is completely different from the previous demonic calamities. It will sweep through the entire Kunlun realm. No one can avoid it." Xiaochen said sullenly, "You take care as well." As Yingyu sent off Xiaochen with her eyes, her heart grew increasingly sullen. With Xiaochen's departure, the peaceful days of the Sky Dome realm would come to an end. With the arrival of great chaos, Xiaochen, who had been at peace for 2.5 years, arrived at the center of the storm, returning to the Kunlun realm. After leaving the teleportation formation, Xiaochen saw Emo Chun, who had been waiting for a long time already. After 2 years, Emo Chun's aura had become even denser and heavier. Xiaochen was slightly shocked. "Emo Chun, you've reached the consummate stage of blue-robed emperor?" After walking closer to take a look, Xiaochen discovered that Mo Chun had actually reached the blue-robed emperor realm of perfection. Just 2 years ago, the other party had only reached the level of greater mastery of the blue-robed emperor. In just 2 short years, he had actually broken through to the level of greater mastery. Of course, Xiaochen using 1 year to break through was an exception. He had obtained a fortuitous encounter, and obtained the Bloodsword Sovereign's secret technique, which allowed him to condense the heart of an emperor. Mo Chun smiled and said, "The Book of Heavenly Works, the further one cultivates, the more harvests there will be. However, there is still a gap between me and those blue-robed emperors who have attained great perfection in the celestial battlefield. My comprehension was mainly in the area of refining tools." Xiaochen now understood. While Mo Chun did not seem to be fighting in the celestial battlefield, her comprehension of the Book of Heavenly Works did not rely on that in the first place. It relied on making breakthroughs in refining. With the Dragon's Gate's current resources and the Book of Heavenly Works, it would not be strange for her to break through to the level of consummation blue-robed emperor. That's right, why don't I see Lan Xiaobai, Yu Chenxi and the others? Mo Chun sighed and said, "Right now the Kunlun realm is too chaotic. They all went out 1 year ago, wanting to break through to the level of consummation blue-robed emperor as soon as possible." Feeling curious, Xiaochen asked, "Why?" Mo Chun explained, "That group of outstanding talents from the astral battlefield all returned. Half of the peak outstanding talents of the Kunlun continent's 5 major races died." When Xiaochen heard that, he was stunned. This was somewhat horrifying. The losses were too great. Xiaochen came from the Kunlun realm, and knew the talent of those outstanding talents. If they did not die, they would most likely advance to martial emperor. It was just a matter of time. It could be within 100 years or 10 years. In other words, half of the future Emperor Wu of the Kunlun realm had died. However, those who came back alive, without exception, all reached the level of consummation blue-robed emperor. Among them, the personal disciples of the various primes shone the brightest. Of these primes' inheritors, Wuxia is the most famous. The two chatted as they walked. From Mo Chun, Xiaochen learned that Wuxia had made great preparations. After he returned from the astral battlefield, he had already defeated several older generation Emperor Wu. The personal disciples of the other primes, like the Xingtian Emperor, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor, the Haotian Prime, and the Fox King, were also extraordinary, all of them ridiculously strong. The most important thing was that these people all exuded sharpness and drive. Their auras were as dazzling as the blazing sun, overshadowing many of the older generation Emperor Wu. No wonder all the young cultivators of Heavenly Star Island went out to seek fortuitous encounters. They probably all felt the pressure. As for the chaos in the Kunlun realm, it was truly a mess. Aside from the deity race, whose situation was slightly better, the other races were in chaos. There was no need to say much about the Tianwu domain's humans. The Thunder King had disappeared, and the Bushan Palace had fallen into chaos. The 3 holy masters wanted to take advantage of the situation and ascend to the position of Bushan Palace's palace lord. However, the old Thunder King's faction, led by the Haotian Prime, naturally would not allow it. Now the two factions clashed, neither giving way. They were like fire and water. Big brother Ing Zongtian had the strength of a prime. However, when facing the 3 holy masters and the hidden accumulations of the Holy Lands, he was at a slight disadvantage. As for the Fiend race, due to the need to determine a new Fiend King successor, all sorts of old monsters came out to kill their way out. Similarly, the Corpse race and the Ghost race could not avoid falling into chaos. The original conflicts were magnified infinitely. It was like a mysterious faction was stirring things up in the dark. After returning to his personal courtyard, Xiaochen rubbed his head as he listened to Mo Chen's explanation. He felt somewhat confused, but Mo Chen had already done her best to simplify things. The actual situation was 100 times more complicated than that. Right now, the Kunlun realm was like a pool of muddy water. No one dared to say that they could truly see the situation clearly. Xiaochen sat down and asked, "How is the situation in the heavenly starry ocean? Has our Dragon's Gate been affected? Also, has the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace made any moves?" Mo Chen sighed softly, Similarly, it is extremely chaotic. In the past 2 years, the number of lands of fortuitous encounters that were discovered in the oceanic world is dazzling. All sorts of experts took advantage of the situation to rise up. Several of the older generation blue-robed emperors, who did not dare to undergo their tribulations, underwent their tribulations in batches to protect themselves, making the situation even more chaotic. Xiaochen understood. Previously, he did not undergo his tribulations because he feared that the great tribulation of wind and fire would burn him to death. Now he was forced by the situation. If he wanted to survive, he had to advance to martial emperor. Imochen thought for a while before saying, in the past 2 years, at least several hundred blue-robed emperors died in the great tribulation of wind and fire. However, news of them clearing their tribulations kept coming in. As for the Dragon's Gate, it is strange. It has been very peaceful. Furthermore, the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace has been even stranger. They took the initiative to pull back their faction, showing no intention of seeking trouble at all. Xiaochen sighed softly. This was really strange. He was very clear on the Western Sea Dragon King Aolang's temper. He was definitely not the kind of person with great boldness. After Xiaochen left for 2 years, the Western Sea Dragon King actually did not seek trouble for the Dragon's Gate. There had to be something wrong with this. However, Xiaochen ignored the Western Sea Dragon King for now. He had more important things to do. He told Imochen about obtaining the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame, and asked her how to refine and subdue such a primal chaos-level flame. When Imochen heard that, she rejoiced. Heavenly Snow Divine Flame. To think that you actually obtained such a primal chaos-level flame. This is a legendary flame. Elder brother Xiaochen, you truly live up to being someone with great fortuitous encounters. Don't worry, I know how to refine it. As a Grandmaster Blacksmith and with the Book of Heavenly Works, Mochen could be said to be very familiar with all sorts of flames, not lacking in knowledge at all. A primal chaos-level flame like the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame required Emperor Wu's strength to refine it. However, Xiaochen had the heart of an emperor and could refine it now. He only needed to use a secret technique to find 10,000-year-old ice and seal the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame in ice. Then he swallowed it and absorbed it into his heart of an emperor. As for nourishing such a divine flame, he needed a secret treasure similar to a Buddhist lamp. After that, he had to use ice-attributed natural treasures to refine lamp oil to nourish this flame. Imochen frowned and thought hard. Such a secret treasure similar to a Buddhist lamp is too hard to find. If there is no other way, I can help you refine a peak Buddhist lamp. Unfortunately, you found me too late. Otherwise, this Heavenly Snow Divine Flame would be very useful for your great tribulation of wind and fire. If only I had returned to the Sky Dome realm with you at that time. Imochen showed a serious expression, appearing extremely frustrated. When she saw Xiaochen, she smiled and said, "Why are you even more anxious than me?" Imochen grumbled. "How can I not be anxious? Your great tribulation of wind and fire only has half a year left. If anything happens to you..." At this point, Imochen quickly shut her mouth. Clearly, she realized that it was best not to say such inauspicious words. When Xiaochen heard that, he smiled softly and said, "Don't worry. I promised you that I would personally see you remove your veil. Before that, I will not die." Imochen nodded and said, "You definitely won't. I also promised you that I would protect you during your great tribulation of wind and fire. Oh right, there is one more thing. You came back at a good time. Elder Qin is about to undergo his great tribulation of wind and fire," Imochen said, recalling something. Xiaochen was not that surprised. Elder Qin was very old. He had been stuck in the blue-robed emperor realm for several hundred years already. Once he reached consummation blue-robed emperor, he would have sufficient accumulations and could undergo his tribulation at any time. This is a good thing. My Dragon's Gate owes Elder Qin a debt of gratitude. I will definitely do my best to protect him. However, the timing is not very good. The Haotian sect is currently locked in a fierce battle with the 3 holy masters, and cannot send anyone to help him. Imochen shook her head and said, "That is not the crucial point. Elder Qin has to succeed in advancing to martial emperor." "What do you mean?" "First of all, After he advances to Martial Emperor, the Dragon's Gate's strength will increase significantly. After that, it will be easier for Lan Xiaobai and the others to advance to Martial Emperor, forming a good cycle. However, if he fails, not only will the Dragon's Gate lose a senior elder, but it will also affect the luck of the Dragon's Gate. The most direct impact will be on you, Imochen said with a serious expression. Luck was an extremely strange thing. Elder Qin had long been tied to the Dragon's Gate, complementing each other. If he failed to advance to Martial Emperor, it would definitely affect the Dragon's Gate's luck. Xiaochen thought about the black tribulation clouds when the Dragon's Gate advanced to Martial Emperor. His heart sank as he realized the severity of the matter. Imochen said softly, "If we can see the problem clearly, others can as well. When Elder Qin advances to Martial Emperor, it will definitely affect everything." As the two discussed Elder Qin's advancement to Martial Emperor, the news of Xiao Chen's return to the Kunlun realm quickly spread to the various powerhouses of the heavenly starry ocean. Chapter 13-16. At the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace, the Western Sea Dragon King Ao Lang immediately received news of Xiao Chen's return. "Father, I can confirm that Xiao Chen is back," the young master of Dragon Palace said excitedly and expectantly. Ao Lang nodded casually and said, "I got it. You may withdraw." The Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace's young palace master, Ao Feng, was startled. He asked, "Father, what's wrong? Didn't we endure for 2 years for this opportunity? Could it be that Haotian Prime beat you until you lost all your temper? That fellow made me kneel, and told you to scram from Heavenly Star Island. What a great humiliation." Ao Lang glared at Xiao Chen and shouted angrily, "How dare you? Brat, what do you know? Every time, you are the one who fails to accomplish anything but spoils everything. Scram." Angry at Ao Feng for not putting up a fight, Ao Lang sent Ao Feng flying with a palm strike. After that, he still felt worried. He said to one of his trusted subordinates, "Keep a close eye on him. Don't let him cause trouble during this period." Yes. A powerful Emperor Wu walked out from the darkness and quietly followed Ao Feng. Once he discovered that Ao Feng was acting on his own, he would immediately stop him. After a while, a letter appeared in his hand. He said with a grave expression, "This treasure master is indeed mysterious. To think that he already knew that Xiao Chen was returning 2 days ago." At that time, Xiao Chen was still in the Sky Dome realm. Unexpectedly, he still had a faction in the Sky Dome realm. However, there was one more piece of news from the treasure master that puzzled Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen ordered Xiao Chen to use the blood-clad guards to prevent the Dragon's Gate's Elder Qin from advancing to Martial Emperor. Furthermore, he strictly ordered Xiao Chen not to attack Xiao Chen. "Remember, don't attack Xiao Chen. The time isn't right. This operation is only to deal with Elder Qin, not Xiao Chen." Ao Lang put away the letter and said coldly, "If you don't want to make a move, then so be it. I already endured for 2 years. I don't care about a moment longer." Then, he walked toward a mysterious island controlled by the West Ocean Dragon Palace. Many formations and all sorts of horrifying restrictions surrounded the island. Even a sovereign martial emperor would find it hard to break through here. There's nothing strange happening with the first formation. There's nothing strange happening in the second formation. The 99th spell formation hasn't moved. As Ao Lang walked, the people controlling the formations continuously appeared and reported to him. This was not a long journey, but Ao Lang traveled for 1 hour before he landed on the island. This showed how many restrictions and formations there were. "Greetings, Dragon King." Seeing Ao Lang arrive, the 300 red-clad cultivators flew over from all over the island and knelt on the ground, speaking in unison. The martial artist's red clothes glowed with a blood-like brilliance. After wearing this red clothes, the martial artist's aura became extremely strange, giving off a very evil feeling. These were the blood-robed guards. The blood-robed guards were extremely strange. As long as one wore them, not only would their strength increase greatly, but their cultivation speed would also increase explosively. The treasure master had given the scarlet clothes to Xiao Chen. Furthermore, the treasure master had told Xiao Chen the method to make them. Xiaochen was originally interested in the scarlet clothes, but after seeing the side effects he no longer dared to touch them. As long as they wore the bloodstained clothes, it meant that they were walking on the path of death, and their lifespan would not exceed 5 years. Normally, no one would be willing to wear such an evil item. However, the West Sea Dragon Palace had been passed down for many years, so there would always be some kamikaze warriors willing to die. 2 years ago, these cultivators were only martial sages. Some of them were even weaker. However, after 2 years, their strength had increased at a horrifying rate. Unexpectedly, they all reached the level of First Heaven Emperor Wu. Some of the more talented ones even reached the level of Third Heaven Emperor Wu. However, the upper limit of these scarlet clothes seemed to be the Third Heaven Emperor Wu. No matter how much they cultivated after that, they would not be able to advance to Greater Heavenly Emperor Wu. However, this was already sufficient. Who could imagine that he, Ao Lang, already had 300 Emperor Wu level kamikaze warriors? Looking at these blood-robed guards, Ao Lang felt very ambitious. Now even if he faced a huge faction like Zodiac Hall, he would not fear it. 4 blood-robed guards should be enough to deal with an insignificant Elder Qin. To be safe, I should increase the number to 10. Even though Xiaochen had guessed that the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace was unusual, he would not have imagined that the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace hid such a horrifying faction. At this moment, Xiaochen was refining the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame. He followed the method that Emochen taught him, and successfully absorbed the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame into his heart of an emperor. The heart of an emperor was a void. Aside from the whirlpool formed by the 100 strands of primordial energy, and the lightning triggered by the whirlpool, there was nothing else. After the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame entered, a cold aura immediately spread throughout the entire void. Whoosh! Frost covered Xiaochen's entire body. Xiaochen could not help shivering. How cold! 1 hour later, Xiaochen's body slowly adapted to this extreme cold. However, frost infiltrated his black hair, turning it as white as snow. Unexpectedly, subduing the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame has such side effects. Xiaochen smiled bitterly as he looked at his white hair in the mirror. Suddenly, the scene in the mirror changed, and little Three appeared. She giggled and said, "This is normal." In the past, during the Immortal Epoch, many immortals subdued primal chaos level flames. Some of them even had their skin turn red. Elder Brother White Robes, this is already considered good. After you completely grasp it, it will slowly recover. However, there are benefits to this as well. Try it, and you will know. As the item spirit of the 3 Life Mirror, Little Three was very knowledgeable and experienced. Xiaochen followed Little Three's instructions and sensed it. He discovered that the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame in his heart of an emperor seemed to have merged with his body. Releasing the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame was like his innate skill, extremely easy. With a thought, he could send out patches of snow-white flames with a gentle palm strike. He could control these flames to descend quietly like snowflakes or form a snowstorm that swept out ferociously. After testing the might of the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame in the desolate mountain, Xiaochen felt extremely satisfied. This was just the initial stage, but the might of the flame was already sufficient to injure an ordinary Emperor Wu. A primal chaos level flame truly lived up to being a legendary flame. If Emochen refined the Buddhist lamp and slowly nourished the flame, raising its quality and quantity, it would reach a horrifying level. 3 days later, Emochen sent someone to inform Xiaochen, telling him to go to Elder Qin's residence. Elder Qin's great tribulation of wind and fire is about to begin. Xiaochen muttered. Time was really tight. Right after Xiaochen spoke, his figure flashed, and he arrived at the peak where Elder Qin cultivated. Little friend Xiaochen, it has been 2 years since we last met. Why are you not coming to visit this old man? The one who spoke was Lan Xiaofeng, who had also rushed over. Xiaochen smiled apologetically. Sorry. This junior just refined a primal chaos level flame, and was trying it out in the past few days. A primal chaos level flame. When Lan Xiaofeng heard that, he was so shocked that his jaw nearly fell off. I say, little fellow, why did your hair turn white? Ha, you are really lucky. I'm so jealous that it makes me go crazy. A primal chaos level flame is a flame that only appears in legends. Even those primes of the Kunlun realm probably do not have one. Xiaochen remained very calm. He smiled and said, "It is not that exaggerated. At least, it is not that horrifying yet." Haha. Little fellow, your mental state is already stronger than mine. You are here to protect old Qin, right? Lan Xiaofeng said. Xiaochen nodded and said, "Senior Lan, what do you think? What are the chances of Elder Qin clearing his great tribulation of wind and fire?" Lan Xiaofeng's face sank slightly. He sighed softly. It is not very optimistic. The great tribulation of wind and fire is very difficult to clear in the first place. Furthermore, Elder Qin's luck is tied to the Dragon's Gate. If someone makes a move in secret, it will be even more difficult to say. Once the Thunder King leaves, the world will instantly fall into chaos. As a living legend, the Thunder King was the strongest person of the Kunlun realm, fully deserving of his title. The reason why the Kunlun realm did not fall into chaos despite the various races fighting for hegemony was the Thunder King's prestige. With him around, the strong deity race would never dare to openly claim hegemony. With him around, the demon monarchs of the deep abyss demonic world would not dare to play any tricks in the Sky Dome realm. With him around, some of the major characters would appear to mediate between grudges. Everyone would give the Thunder King some face. However, the moment the Thunder King left, the Kunlun realm fell into utter chaos. The fragile order immediately broke. The reason for this was actually very simple. After the fall of the Qing Emperor, the Kunlun realm did not have a true king that everyone trusted. Without a strong king, there was no way to set rules. Without rules, there would be no chaos. Although the Thunder King was strong, he could only maintain order on the surface. After all, he was not as strong as the Qing Emperor. The wooden door to a simple wooden hut at the summit opened, and Elder Qin and Emochen walked out together. When Emochen saw the white-haired Xiaochen, she found it strange. She asked, "Big brother Xiaochen, what's going on with your hair?" Xiaochen smiled casually and replied, "Some side effects from refining the heavenly snow divine flame. That's not a problem. Let's discuss Elder Qin's great tribulation of wind and fire." Worry appeared in Elder Qin's eyes. He performed a cup-fist salute and said, "This time I really have to trouble the few of you. Elder Qin is too polite. We are all family, so there is no need to say so much," Xiaochen said with a nod. Lan Xiaofeng smiled and said, "Old Qin, most blue-robed emperors will go through this. Let's go in and talk." The four entered the hut together and discussed Elder Qin's tribulation. Lan Xiaofeng had the final say in this matter. Xiaochen did not say anything, only listening. Xiaochen's great tribulation of wind and fire was coming soon. He could learn about it at the same time. Lan Xiaofeng took a sip of tea and said, "In the past, when things were peaceful, one could choose any place to undergo the tribulation. If we spoil the blue-robed emperor's tribulation, we will definitely suffer the revenge of one of the factions. Right now the world is in a mess. We have to plan properly before choosing a place to undergo the tribulation." Emochen continued, "First of all, we can eliminate Heaven Dragon City as the place to undergo the tribulation. Right now, Heaven Dragon City is filled with crooks and honest folk. The waters are too deep. However, during the tribulation, when the mysterious phenomenon appears, it will definitely startle the surroundings. It will not be possible to hide it." "That's right. However, we have to choose a more remote place. At the very least, if someone tries to cause trouble, they will need some time to rush over." After Emochen said that, she took out a stack of information and handed it to everyone. "This is what I collected in the past 2 years. It is the information of those who succeeded in their tribulations. Although it is not very complete, it should be useful as a reference." Lan Xiaofeng teased, "Little girl Emochen, you probably collected this for someone. I'm guessing that Elder Qin is just passing by." Chapter 13:17. When Emochen heard that, she blushed slightly and said, "What nonsense are you speaking?" Elder Qin smiled and said, "Old Lan, stop being so jealous. You are already so old. Yet you are still not being serious." Xiaochen felt somewhat embarrassed. Of course, the someone Lan Xiaofeng was referring to was himself. However, at this moment, Xiaochen could only feign ignorance. Otherwise, it would be even more awkward. Speaking of which, the information that Emochen gathered was indeed very useful. Soon, Xiaochen forgot about what happened earlier, immersing himself in the information. Without exception, all the people who underwent their tribulations in the past 2 years were ambushed. Along the way, it was hard for cultivators to avoid forming grudges with others or opposing factions. They were not willing to see their opponents grow stronger, so they would definitely send people to interfere. Being ambushed was normal. It was just that the strength of the attack was different. To think that there are so many blue-robed emperors who succeeded in their tribulations. It looks like the laws of the world have changed in the past 2 years. Historically, this is a sign of chaotic times descending. Lan Qiaofeng sighed and shook his head as he put down the information. In this age of peace and tranquility, there would definitely not be so many blue-robed emperors who cleared their great tribulations of wind and fire. Only chaos would create fluctuations and fortuitous encounters. This is the information of those who failed. Emochen said softly as she took out another pile of information. The information on those who failed was clearly several times more than those who succeeded. When Elder Qin looked through the information, his expression turned grave. There were many successes, but there were even more failures. Xiaochen looked very carefully. Slowly he discovered something wrong. He frowned slightly and said, "Why do I feel that no matter how well hidden these people who cleared their great tribulations of wind and fire are, they will be discovered within 1 hour and sniped?" The three's expressions changed slightly. They had not noticed this detail earlier. Now it looked like everyone, regardless of whether they succeeded in clearing their tribulations or not, they would all be discovered within 1 hour. Xiaochen did not say much. However, when he did, he immediately hit the nail on the head. Lan Qiaofeng said sullenly, "If it is not a coincidence, then there must be a horrifying faction behind this. At the very least, their intelligence network is the best in the world." The location of the tribulation transcendence was a secret. For example, when Elder Qin underwent his tribulation, only the 4 people present knew where it was. Yet that mysterious power was able to capture it within an hour. Just the thought of it made one shudder in fear. Emochen said, "In that case, it looks like there is no need to care where I choose to undergo my tribulation. I'll just choose a small island in the sea region of Heavenly Star Island." Lan Qiaofeng said, "Since it is unavoidable, there is no need to worry about this." When is Elder Qin preparing to undergo his tribulation? Elder Qin pondered for a moment before saying, "Let's do it today. Whether I succeed or not, I'll accept it. As a martial artist, I have to take this step." Emochen quickly took out the sea chart and circled it with her finger. This one. That was a desolate island outside of Heavenly Star Island. It was very small and did not have many resources. Normally, it would not attract much attention. After deciding on the location, everyone began to discuss who would come to snipe them. First of all, the West Ocean Dragon Palace would have a lot of them, even though it had been quiet for the past 2 years. However, it was still a problem for the Dragon's Gate. If it was not eliminated, it would never be at peace. Next would be the Holy Lands that came to cause trouble during the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony. The 5 Poison Sect, the Zodiac Hall, the Divine Dragon Palaces of the 4 Seas, the Heavenly Province Academy, and the ancient noble clans. Lan Qiaofeng smiled and said, "These holy lands are too far away. There is no need to worry too much. The one we are truly worried about is the Western Sea Divine Dragon Palace. That fellow has been low profile and mysterious for the past 2 years. Furthermore, he is very close to the Dragon's Gate, so we need to be wary of him." During the discussion, Xiaochen spoke very little. His opinions were even fewer, nearly none at all. This attracted Emochen's attention. "Big brother Xiaochen, what's wrong? Do you have a different opinion?" Xiaochen put down the teacup in his hand. "I just feel somewhat regretful about how difficult it is to advance to Martial Emperor. I feel like I've let Elder Qin down. Thinking about how Elder Qin followed me to Heavenly Star Island, he helped me a lot along the way. In the end, he ended up creating trouble for you." Elder Qin quickly said, "What are you saying? Little friend Xiaochen is too polite. If not for the resources of your heavenly star island, I would not have advanced to martial emperor so quickly. Xiao Chun swirled the teacup in his hand. He did not reply or say anything. He only said indifferently in his heart, no matter who it is, as long as they come to cause trouble, no matter where they are, I will take revenge ruthlessly. That was right. This was an oath. Even during the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony, Xiao Chun did not make an oath. The reason was none other than that those were targeted at him. He did not care. However, this time his benefactor was implicated. This already touched Xiao Chun's bottom line. When one touched the reverse scale of a dragon, one would die. Although Xiao Chun did not say anything, the other three could feel the silent rage in Xiao Chun's heart. The atmosphere turned somewhat silent. Lan Chaofeng said, "Old Qin, let's go." "Oh right, little lass Mo Chun, there is no need for you to go. Just stay in Heaven Dragon City. I'm afraid that some people will take the opportunity to cause trouble while I'm not here." "Don't worry, just go. Nothing will happen to Heaven Dragon City. Take care." Xiao Chun's group of three left. After a while, they arrived at the designated island. Lan Chaofeng pulled Xiao Chun and walked 1 kilometer away from Elder Qin. Then he explained, "Everything within 1 kilometer will be affected. We just have to stand guard outside." Elder Qin took a deep breath and looked to the sky. There was an emperor's door there. The fog scattered, filled with boundless temptation. Once one advanced to martial emperor, one's lifespan would immediately increase to 2,000 years. Suddenly, a strong wind surged out from Elder Qin, kicking up sand and rocks. The wind was like a sharp blade, and the dust was like a sword, incredibly sharp. "It's starting," Lan Chaofeng muttered. "They will arrive in 1 hour. Let's see if that mysterious faction is really that horrifying." Xiao Chun squinted and looked at the storm. He saw Elder Qin's aura rising infinitely. It was like a mountain flood that had been suppressed and accumulated for a long time suddenly erupted, showing signs of breaking through the sky. Mysterious phenomena appeared high in the sky. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, and dark clouds covered the sky. The surrounding seawater trembled endlessly. Even the small island was trembling nonstop. Xiao Chun entered deep thought. This was the first step of the tribulation. He had to unleash his full strength and trigger a mysterious phenomenon, making the emperor's door descend from the sky. Amid the strong wind and lightning, Elder Qin thought of his experiences in the past few centuries on the path of cultivation. He roared ferociously, releasing all the anger that he had suppressed for hundreds of years. There was no need for fear, no need for fear. At this moment he only needed to vent to his heart's content, letting the heavens hear his rage. With a shout, Elder Qin's might temporarily surpassed the might of the world. The world suddenly turned quiet. Everything seemed to come to a standstill, an extremely wondrous sight. When Xiao Chun looked carefully, he could see that every speck of dust floating in the air was fixed in place. Boom. However, after a moment of silence, a furious roar came from the sky, sounding like it was dissatisfied with Elder Qin. The ancient door descended from the sky and hovered in the air before landing heavily. The world trembled. In that instant, when the emperor's door descended, it brought with it a heavenly might. This made Xiao Chun and Lan Chaofeng feel like they could not resist it, like they had suffered a heavy blow. It was extremely horrifying. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Many jade-white steps descended from the emperor's door, giving off a heavenly mandate. The jade-white steps continued to descend. After reaching 1,000 steps, they stopped. Xiao Chun was entranced by this sight, but he could not understand it. He could not understand what this meant. He asked Senior Lan, "What is the meaning of the colors and the number of steps on the Emperor's Road?" Lan Chaofeng explained, "There are many ways. The colors of the Emperor's Road are white, blue, purple, and gold. The denser the color, the stronger the great tribulation of wind and fire. According to legend, during the most glorious period of the martial epoch, there were 7 colored steps or even 9 colored steps. When the Emperor's Road descended, colorful clouds flew and auspicious signs filled the sky. It was a miracle of the world. However, it has not appeared for a very long time already. I have only seen a golden one. That was when Emperor Forsaken underwent his great tribulation of wind and fire. The golden light was so dazzling that no one dared to look at it directly. Indeed, that fellow did not disappoint everyone, surpassing the 9 heavens and reaching prime. There is also a kind of Black Emperor's Road that is unique to demons and evil cultivators when they undergo their tribulations. Xiaochen now understood. This color represented a person's accumulations and accumulations. The darker the color, the stronger the great tribulation of wind and fire. In the future, one's accomplishments would also be higher. Of course, that was assuming one could finish walking the Emperor's Road. A colorful Emperor's Road had only appeared in legends. Now a golden Emperor's Road appeared. This was already a heaven-defying matter. Most of the Emperor's Roads were white and blue, with relatively little purple. As for the number of steps, it was also a manifestation of one's accumulations. The stronger one was, the more steps they would have. Xiaochen wondered what color his Emperor's Road would have when he underwent his tribulation, and how many steps there would be. 1,000 steps and a jade-white color. It looks like old Qin's accumulations are still lacking. I believe that the outstanding talents of your generation will have at least a purple Emperor's Road when they undergo their tribulations. There will be at least 3,000 steps. However, this is good for old Qin. At the very least, the intensity will not be too high, and it will be easier to clear the great tribulation of wind and fire. As the two spoke, intense determination flashed in Elder Qin's eyes. Then he leaped into the air, wanting to step onto that Emperor's Road. Whoosh! However, just as Elder Qin was about to land, a huge fireball fell from the sky. The blazing fireball seemed to give off an intense light, so piercing that it hurt one's eyes. This sudden turn of events caught Xiaochen off guard. He squinted and felt a piercing pain. However, Lan Xiaofeng had been prepared long ago. He circulated his primordial energy to protect his eyes, so he was fine. This is a rank 3 solar true flame. It is not particularly powerful, roughly equal to a strike from Emperor Wu of the First Heaven. Elder Qin should be able to break it. Xiaochen understood. No wonder it felt familiar. It turned out to be the solar true flame. However, Xiaochen's solar true flame was far from being able to rival Emperor Wu's with a casual strike. It was still far from that. Everywhere the fireball passed, it left behind a long flame tail in the air. That flame tail was like a snake, filled with spirituality as it swayed about continuously. When facing this fireball formed by the solar true flame, Elder Qin did not dare to be careless. He executed his martial technique, Meteor Palm. Xiaochen moved like a meteor tearing through the starry heavens. When he threw a palm strike, it was like a meteor exploding, striking the fireball. Boom! The fireball shattered, turning into golden motes of light scattering everywhere. Chapter 13-18. As he descended, countless sharp wind blades suddenly flew out of the steps. Elder Qin took out a long sword and quickly brandished it. At the tip of the sword, a fiery light appeared, like a meteor streaking across the sky. This was the meteor sword art that Elder Qin practiced. Clang clang clang. After 100 moves, all the wind blades were blocked. Elder Qin was unharmed. He steadily stood on the steps of the Road of Emperor. Lan Xiaofeng said softly, "Good. There are many blue-robed emperors who fell at the first stage before even stepping on their Emperor's Road. Elder Qin, to be able to pass the first round unscathed, it seems like your foundation is very solid." However, this was only the beginning. There were 1,000 steps, and each step was a hurdle, and each step was a tribulation. First there was wind, then there was fire. 300 types of wind, 300 types of fire. Finally, wind and fire came together. The wind borrowed the power of the fire, and the fire borrowed the power of the wind, burning the heaven and earth cleanly. The first step, cold wind manifestation. Just how cold was it? Even the formless wind had turned into sharp, ice arrows, under the freezing temperature. It was evident. 900 ice arrows fell like raindrops. With just one step, Elder Qin's saint body had suffered 100 wounds of different sizes. Seeing this, Xiaochen sucked in a breath of cold air. How did the wind blow here? It was so cold that it turned into ice arrows. The second step, fierce wind whip. The whistling wind condensed into long whips, lashing the air with crackling sounds, making one tremble in fear. Xiao Chen's movements were a little slow, and Elder Qin received a vicious slap on his face. The wound was horrifying, making one's hair stand on end. Even though Xiao Chen's mental fortitude was terrifyingly strong, at this moment his body was still trembling slightly. Furthermore, he had only taken 2 steps. Furthermore, this was only the relatively ordinary Great Tribulation of wind and fire. Lan Chaofeng did not find this strange. His expression remained calm as he analyzed calmly. That's right. Although there are many wounds on Elder Qin, they are not fatal. Passing the wind tribulation shouldn't be a problem. Every step he took was a calamity. Elder Qin was covered in wounds. He gritted his teeth and walked silently. That kind of perseverance caused those who saw it to be moved and unable to bear it. Xiao Chen now finally knew why so many people didn't dare to transcend this wind and fire tribulation. It was too difficult, too miserable. You must get through it, Xiao Chen murmured in his heart, silently encouraging Elder Qin. Just at this moment, Xiao Chen and Lan Chaofeng exchanged glances at the same time. The two of them both sensed that someone was currently flying over. Elder Qin hadn't even taken 10 steps before he arrived. Let me. Xiao Chen said faintly before his figure disappeared. In the sky, 6 thunderbolts fell. As the lightning illuminated the sky and earth, a blurry white figure could be seen in that instant. It seemed as though he had struck out with his palm towards the void. His movements were so fast that people could only see afterimages. They couldn't be sure. Wuxia. The instant the lightning vanished, 6 figures appeared at the same time. Their complexions were slightly pale, clearly horrified. They had been forced out of the void by someone's powerful palm force while they were traveling through it. Blue Dragon King, please don't misunderstand. We only sensed some abnormalities in the spiritual energy fluctuations, and came to take a look. We did not know that the Dragon's Gate's Elder Qin was undergoing his tribulation. One of the gray-clad old men looked at the white-haired, white-clad Xiao Chen and explained. Xiao Chen sized up the 6. Then he performed a cupped fist salute and said, I won't say anything unnecessary. No matter which faction you come from, leave now. I, Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen, owe you a favor. The 6 people who rushed over were slightly stunned, wondering if they heard wrong. The Blue Dragon King showed off his sharpness. During the Dragon's Gate's re-establishment ceremony, Emperor Wu had faced off against the Western Sea Dragon King against the 13 greater heavenly cultivators. However, when facing 6 minor heavenly cultivators, Emperor Wu was so polite, easily taking a step back and leaving them a favor. This was simply unbelievable. The 6 reacted and quickly said, Blue Dragon King, you are too polite. This is just a small matter. This is not much of a favor. We will just leave. Let's congratulate the Dragon's Gate's elder in advance for clearing his tribulation. The 6 had only rushed over from Heaven Dragon City to see what was going on. They came out of curiosity and had no other purpose. Since Xiao Chen was so polite, naturally, they would give him some face, doing him a favor at little cost. Xiao Chen said sincerely, many thanks. They came quickly and left quickly as well. The 6 left in the blink of an eye. Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. Everything revolved around Elder Qin's tribulation. If he could avoid making a move, he would. That would be for the best. After that, a few more people came from Heaven Dragon City. However, Xiao Chen persuaded them to leave with kind words. Right now, Heaven Dragon City was already the center of the Western Sea. Normally, many Emperor Wus gathered there. It was not strange for them to rush over at this time. Fortunately, the Blue Dragon King's name still held some prestige. Many Emperor Wus gave him some face. Suddenly, Xiao Chen discovered 10 red-clad cultivators with strange auras on the surface of the sea. A bad feeling welled up in Xiao Chen's heart. Then his figure flashed, and he landed in front of the 10. Stop! The Dragon's Gate's elder in front is undergoing his tribulation. Please leave. The clothes of the 10 red-clad people were like blood. There were no decorations or patterns on them. They looked like they were dyed in blood. Xiao Chen felt extremely uncomfortable looking at them. His spiritual sense was very sharp. He could even vaguely sense a sinister resentment from these red-clad people. It was extremely strange. What was even stranger was that Xiaochen could not make out the cultivation of these red-clad people, either. This was an extremely strange thing. With Xiaochen's current eyesight, even a prime would be able to sense it. Could these 10 people be even stronger than primes? That was impossible. Xiaochen could not even sense a heart of an emperor from them. The leader of the blood-clad guards looked like a middle-aged man. He had a pale complexion and an eye-catching black mark on his forehead. This person completely ignored Xiaochen's words as he led the others to the small island. Soon, they were less than 100 meters from Xiaochen. This was already an extremely dangerous distance. A murderous intent surged in Xiaochen's heart. He said indifferently, "I'll say it again. The Dragon's Gate's elder is undergoing his tribulation. Do not approach this place." The middle-aged man revealed a cruel smile. "Others treat you as the Blue Dragon King, and give you some face. However, in my eyes you are nothing. If you move aside now, I will not seek trouble for you. If you do not, you will bear the consequences." Although the middle-aged man said that, he did not give Xiaochen a chance to reply at all. After the middle-aged man said the last 2 words, he charged at Xiaochen, not caring about the morality of a cultivator at all. When the middle-aged man threw a palm strike, there was no earth-shaking aura or horrifying emperor's might. It was just an ordinary palm strike with only a hazy scarlet light and a dense resentment spreading out in all directions. Xiaochen had long been on guard. With his rich combat experience, he would not fluster over such a small trick. Xiaochen circulated all the law energy in his body. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he sent out a palm strike, accompanied by ear-splitting thunder. Boom! The 2 palms clashed, and Xiaochen's body flew back like a cannonball. As for the middle-aged man, he did not move at all. Such a result was completely unexpected. Xiaochen spun around a few times before he managed to dissipate the force of the other party's palm strike. Blood leaked out of a corner of his lips. He had clearly suffered a great loss. The middle-aged man withdrew his palm and stood upright. Then he said gently, "The Blue Dragon King is only a sissif. I did not even use half of my strength." Xiaochen analyzed calmly. That earlier palm strike did not have the support of primordial energy. However, its offensive power reached the level of a second heaven Emperor Wu. The other party had not used half of his strength yet. In other words, this person possessed the peak strength of a third heaven Emperor Wu. Whoosh! The middle-aged man turned into a beam of scarlet light and arrived in an instant. Then he launched a lightning-quick attack at Xiaochen, who had just landed. A scarlet sword appeared in the middle-aged man's hand. As he swung it, scarlet light shot out in all directions. The rumbling of water did not stop. That was a sea of blood surging in the air. Its aura was startling, pushing Xiaochen back step by step. However, there was still no emperor's might. The destructive power of a peak third heaven martial emperor was the real deal, no exaggeration at all. Xiaochen could not help feeling even more astonished. Where did this group of people come from? They did not have emperor's might or a heart of an emperor, but their destructive power was on par with Emperor Wu's. He had never seen or heard of such a thing before. The other party's attacks were too ferocious. Without using his primordial energy, Xiaochen was not a match for them at all. After 100 moves, Xiaochen crossed his arms in defense and got kicked away again. As he retreated, Xiaochen pushed off the ground with one hand and gently pushed off. He spun 3 times in the air before standing firm again. The ways of the world have changed long ago. Don't think that just because people call you the Blue Dragon King a few times, you can truly be called a king. The middle-aged man kicked Xiaochen away with a strong aura. Half of his strength was enough to force Xiaochen into such a sorry state. This filled the middle-aged man with confidence. He instructed, "Split into 5 to deal with Lan Chaofeng. For to disrupt that old fogey's tribulation. Leave this brat to me." Xiaochen wiped off the blood at the corner of his lips and smiled faintly. "Who gave you such strong confidence to deal with me alone? Let me tell you this. None of you can get past me." The middle-aged man thought that victory was already in his grasp when he could force Xiaochen into such a sorry state, without even using half his strength. However, from the start to the end, Xiaochen did not use his primordial energy at all. He did not even take out the lunar shadow saber. Half of Xiao Chen's strength was not even half of his. He was far from using it. The primordial energy split into two and chased each other endlessly. The Taiji force field instantly formed. The blood-clad soldiers, who wanted to get past Xiao Chen, suddenly got pulled back by a suction force. Within 1 kilometer, they were all trapped in Xiao Chen's Taiji force field. Even if they wanted to get out, there was no way. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes as he looked at the middle-aged man in front. In the end, it is hard for you to use unorthodox methods to reach the upper echelons. There are no shortcuts on the path of cultivation. I'll show you what Emperor Wu's true combat prowess is. Quick! The blue dragon goes to sea, clouds move in all directions. Xiao Chen's figure suddenly moved as fast as lightning. He was like a blue dragon leaping out of the sea, displaying a startling aura. The middle-aged man felt shocked. Before he could react, Xiao Chen had already pressed forward. The middle-aged man had no choice but to make a move to block this palm strike. The middle-aged man used his full power to throw a palm strike. In terms of aura, it was no weaker than Xiao Chen's. Its destructive power was even more startling. However, this palm strike only had the form and the aura, but no might. The middle-aged man had not undergone the great tribulation of wind and fire. He did not have the heart of an emperor, or the emperor's might. No matter how strong the destructive power of this palm strike was, in a true clash, the middle-aged man would only be at a disadvantage. Chapter 13:19. The middle-aged man cried out in pain as he flew back and vomited large mouthfuls of blood. Bang! Xiao Chen moved his body gently. The air was like water, and he was like a fish swimming in the water, sticking close to the other party. He sent out 10 moves in a row, forcing the other party to retreat without being able to defend himself. After seeing Xiao Chen's true strength, the middle-aged man roared in shock. There is no need to care about me. Attack that old fogey undergoing his tribulation with all your might. The lunar shadow saber appeared in Xiao Chen's right hand. Then he asked indifferently, "Do you think there is a chance?" Slow. Everything in the Taiji force field seemed to slow down. Xiao Chen blocked 10 alone, moving slowly. He did not even need to draw his saber to hold back the other party, suppressing the 10 people. After figuring out the strength of this group of scarlet-clad people, Xiao Chen felt more confident. He did not even merge his saber domain into the Taiji force field. He only used the Taiji force field together with the fish dragon art to suppress the other party with the strange changes of speed and slowness. The world spun around. The surrounding scenery seemed like fleeting light and shadows. Lan Chaofeng, who was watching from afar, felt slightly stunned. He could not understand. What martial technique is this? On the surface, it looks like it is just the state of fast and the state of slow. However, why does it feel so harmonious? His movements are also so calm? Originally, Lan Chaofeng was prepared to help. However, after seeing this, he abandoned that thought. Explode. Just as Lan Chaofeng felt that Xiao Chen's movements were calm and peaceful, vaguely merging with the world, Lan Chaofeng suddenly sheathed his saber. As his white hair fluttered, the Taiji force field suddenly exploded. Strong winds blew everywhere, and dust filled the air. Wind blew everywhere, and dust filled the sky. This part of the world seemed to have been blown up to the point where there were no rules. 10 odd figures fell out of the dust, all in sorry states, severely injured and weak. Their spirits were dispirited, and their eyes appeared dispirited. However, their scarlet clothes still looked bright, glistening with a scarlet light. Xiao Chen moved 1 kilometer with each step. Then he slowly walked out of the dust, wind, and rain. His white clothes and white hair made him look as graceful as before, untainted by dust, looking peaceful and peaceful. The middle-aged man received the most attention, and was the most heavily injured. He smiled and said, "No wonder Master told us not to get lucky before we came. Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen, you are indeed outstanding. Speak. Who sent you here? How can you have such strange powers? Tell me honestly, and I'll spare your life." Xiao Chen gently lowered the scabbard of the lunar shadow saber, and pressed it against the middle-aged man's forehead. This group of people had mysterious origins and strange strength. If he had not comprehended the Taiji Dao, it would have been very troublesome to deal with them. More importantly, Xiaochen wanted to figure out why this group of people, who clearly had not undergone a tribulation, did not have a heart of an emperor, or primordial energy, could have the offensive prowess of Emperor Wu. The middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of blood and laughed crazily. Xiaochen, what are you so proud of? Do you think you've won? You actually used death to threaten me. Ha ha ha. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. We are a group of dead people in the first place. No matter the result of this battle, you will always be the one to suffer. No matter how strong you are, you will not be able to change the result. This old fogey will definitely die today. The 10 people's bodies swelled up continuously. The scarlet light of their clothes slowly seeped in, quickly dimming the color of their clothes. Xiaochen's expression changed drastically. Without exception, these 10 people were all death-sworn warriors. They were going to self-detonate. As long as one of them succeeded in self-detonating, they could destroy this island and affect Elder Qin, who was on the Emperor's road, causing him to fail his tribulation. In the distance, Lan Qiaofeng was startled as well. Such a turn of events was completely unexpected. Even if Lan Qiaofeng made a move now, he would not be able to stop everyone from self-detonating. If he miscalculated, he would lose everything. Xiaochen glanced at Elder Qin, who was on the Emperor's road, out of the corner of his eye. Elder Qin had only managed to take 200-odd steps. The bone-chilling wind had already torn his clothes to shreds. The strong wind was merciless. The armor under his clothes was also damaged. His body was covered in wounds, a sorry sight to behold. The most shocking thing were the 2 scars on Xiaochen's face, which looked like he had been whipped. However, even so, Xiaochen had not given up. Even so, Elder Qin did not give up. He walked forward step by step with a hopeful gaze. Elder Qin, who was immersed in his great tribulation of wind and fire, could not afford to be distracted at all. He did not notice that there were still 10 strange cultivators preparing to self-detonate. Hope, Xiaochen felt a pang in his heart. Elder Qin had followed him all the way to this vast heavenly starry ocean. From the Dragon's Gate's initial establishment, he had gone through many trials and tribulations, all the way until the Dragon's Gate's official establishment. Elder Qin had made great contributions and never asked for anything. However, in this great tribulation of wind and fire, could it be that I cannot even give him a trace of hope? Major magic skill, Dermic World. As long as Xiaochen executed the Dermic World magic skill, he could instantly trample this group of bastards to death. However, for a long time, Xiaochen needed at least 3 seconds to prepare to execute Dermic World. However, in the current situation, the 10 madmen would self-detonate in the next second. Xiaochen would not have 3 seconds to prepare. No. Absolutely not. No matter what, I, Xiaochen, will leave this trace of hope for you. Rage? Madness? In that case, I will give you the strength to trample on all the injustices in this world. In Xiaochen's sea of consciousness, the Dermic World hidden in the deepest depths felt Xiaochen's baleful aura, and suddenly opened its eyes. Instantly, Xiaochen's mind became incredibly clear. There were no obstructions in executing Dermic World, making it incredibly smooth. As Xiaochen's white hair fluttered, his eyes looked exceptionally scary. Just as the 10 blood-clad guards' bodies swelled to their limits and were about to self-detonate, Xiaochen's body suddenly swelled up, reaching 3 kilometers tall. At the same time, Xiaochen's strong aura also increased. His aura was like a surging wave. Lan Qiaofeng, who was rushing over, got careless and got pushed back by this wave. When Xiaochen's body reached 3 kilometers tall, Xiaochen felt an unprecedented strength. He glared at the group of madmen below and ruthlessly stomped down. Amid rumbling sounds, Xiaochen used absolute strength to crush the 10 blood-clad guards into a pool of blood as he stomped on them. Whoosh! 3 seconds later, intense pain racked Xiaochen's entire body, and he shrank back to his original size. Boundless blood seeped out of his skin as he fell from the sky. No major magic skill could be executed in one go. This was especially so for a heaven-defying major magic skill like Dermic World. Not a single step could be skipped. Xiaochen forcefully shortened the 3-second execution time to 1 second. The repercussions that followed were unavoidable. Just as Xiao Chun was about to fall to the ground, a gentle wind slowly arrived and supported him. It was Lan Xiaofeng. Lan Xiaofeng reacted very quickly. The instant Xiao Chun turned back, he threw a palm strike. Xiao Chun landed firmly on the ground. Without saying a word, he quickly swallowed a sage medicinal pill to suppress the injuries in his body. "Brat, are you all right? Don't move. Let me take a look." Lan Xiaofeng rushed over and said, "Why did you put in so much effort? You made it look like you underwent a tribulation. What else do you want me to say to you? Don't end up dying while Elder Qin is still alive." Although Lan Xiaofeng said that Xiao Chun was very powerful, he kept checking on Xiao Chun's injuries with a tense expression. This warmed Xiao Chun's heart. He smiled bitterly. This senior Lan is always like this. After a while, Lan Xiaofeng heaved a sigh of relief. "Brat, consider yourself lucky. It is just the rebound of a martial technique. Fortunately, it is not too strong." Actually, Xiao Chun also knew that the backlash was somewhat strong. However, it was not to the point where it would be fatal. However, seeing Lan Xiaofeng's anxious appearance, Xiao Chun could only let Lan Xiaofeng personally check on Xiao Chun before he could relax. "Thank you, Senior Lan." Lan Xiaofeng snorted coldly with a serious expression. "Even if your life is not in danger, you should not put in so much effort. You might end up attracting your great tribulation of wind and fire ahead of time. At that time, even God would not be able to save you." The great tribulation of wind and fire came ahead of time, catching people off guard. Xiao Chun understood this principle and did not dare to rebut. Xiao Chun looked around and pointed to the front. "Look, Elder Qin is about to undergo the final tribulation of wind." Lan Xiaofeng quickly turned his head and saw 3 tornadoes surging over. The strong winds made Elder Qin's body sway slightly. The power of these winds was startlingly strong. Each tornado was 1 kilometer tall. As they charged over, they kicked up dark clouds in the sky. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, rumbling endlessly. Gritting his teeth, Elder Qin forcefully charged over. His body instantly disappeared into the 3 tornadoes. The hearts of Xiao Chun and Lan Xiaofeng tightened at the same time as they stared at the tornadoes. This was especially so for Lan Xiaofeng. He had undergone the great tribulation of wind and fire before and knew how powerful the final wind tribulation was. Many people had died at this stage. After 1 breath, Elder Qin did not appear. 2 breaths, 3 breaths, 4 breaths, and there was still no sign of Elder Qin. The two's expressions turned somewhat unsightly. Even though Xiao Chun had not undergone the great tribulation of wind and fire, he knew that the situation was not good. A ferocious roar rang out. Elder Qin's figure pierced through the storm and landed somewhat unsteadily. Fire. The moment Elder Qin landed, an overwhelming fire spread out on the platform, burning Elder Qin's body. Lan Xiaofeng relaxed for now. He smiled and said, "Old Qin is at least 60% confident of clearing this great tribulation of wind and fire." Xiao Chun asked, "What do you mean?" Lan Xiaofeng said, "Old Qin has 2 trump cards. I originally thought that he would use one of them for the final wind tribulation. Who knew it would be useless? He forcefully endured it. This will bring him great benefits later on." The raging fire burned ceaselessly. Every step was filled with flames of different attributes. However, this path of fire did not have any tricks. The person undergoing the tribulation had to walk it all the way. It would be fine if one could walk it. However, if one could not, one would be burned to death on it, not even leaving a corpse behind. Even one's soul would scatter. Lan Xiaofeng sighed and said, "The pain that this fire tribulation brings is even more direct than the wind tribulation, 10 times more painful. It mostly tests the willpower of the person undergoing the tribulation." Several people collapsed on their emperor's road not because they could not endure this fire tribulation, but because of the pain. When Xiao Chun heard this, he felt astonished. The emperor's road was difficult. While it was a trial that heaven gave to cultivators, it was also an opportunity. After clearing this emperor's road, one's lifespan would increase to 2,000 years. What gift could be better than this? However, Old Qin is still fine. His flames are only rank 3. The fire tribulation that I underwent back then was simply fatal. Not only were the flames rank 7, But there were also fire demons in them. With every step I took, I would suffer the attacks of fire demons. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.